Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Immortal Brendel, and I'm joined here today from the people from the Infinite Morbin Syndicate. Start from the top. Let's go with Black Shadow. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, howdy everyone. Hope you're all keeping fairly well. Before we get started here, I do want to dedicate this podcast to my close friend of 17 years, Craig, who I went and did this series with on my channel with a couple of years or so ago, and he passed away on Monday at 30 years old, which was pretty difficult to consume. So it's been a rough one, but hopefully he hears this somewhere or another, and hopefully he's doing okay wherever the hell he is now.
Yeah, sorry for your loss, man. I guess, hey, Dava, introduce yourself.
Sorry to ruin the mood, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fine, man.
Sorry about that, man. Sorry. Bad news, man. Yeah, hey, name's Deva. You can call me Rick if you want to. Primarily YouTuber / Resident Evil content creator, and thank you guys for having me.
All right. Max B, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Max Pinkva, also known as Lord Ectro. I'm a bit of a variety streamer, and yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Silver Gaming Network, introduce yourself, good sir.
Alrighty, hello again guys, Silver back, and this time for Chris Redfield's African Adventures. Gonna have fun with this, thanks for having me.
Alright, and last but not least, the legend himself, Mr. Morbin Operative. Introduce yourself, sir.
I wanna just pound that boulder. How's it going, people? We're here to talk about the shenanigans in Africa with Chris Redfield, Sheva, and the gang, so hopefully it's gonna be a very fun time.
Alright. To start things off, I'll read up number 1. How did you formally get introduced into Resident Evil 5? What draws you to the game initially? Mine is kind of simple. I just got it by chance from, I think it was GameStop or Amazon. I got the gold edition because by then I got my PS3. The game was finished, right? But the starting phase was actually during middle school, where kids were literally talking about who would be better, who would win the fight. Yes, between Wesker and Chris. And that has been a big heated debate for a while, even until I left. So yeah, that's how I got into Resident Evil 5.
My answer is pretty simple. I basically saw that first initial trailer with Chris in Africa. I forget when they showed it. I think it was E3. But he's walking. He had a different voice actor, if you guys seen that trailer before, and he's talking about how he's going to see the situation through. So a lot of hype because for one reason, they were going back to the main storyline. I already know that where there's Chris, there's Wesker. So that was one thing that captivated me to this game. And another was the different locale and the setting and the fact that they're doing horror in daytime. And I thought that was also pretty cool. And the swarms of enemies, like there were way more enemies on screen than in the initial game. I'm talking like packs of them. So I loved everything about that trailer. I kept up with the news, and then I saw they were updating with co-op and everything, and I was very intrigued by that.
I saw that initial trailer too. I'm like, this shit is actually pretty damn hype. Like, this should actually just make another game based around just all that swarm again. Because honestly, I think it's a missed opportunity that they didn't go with that. Granted, though, it could be technical limitations for the time. Because it is the PS4 360. Those things were.
Call of Duty zombies problem, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. So I imagine that was part of the reason why. But you go ahead, Dava. My apologies.
No, it's all good, man. Actually, I got introduced to it. I remembered. I think it was Game Informer. We had one of the issues that showed a couple of pictures and screenshots, whatever of it, right? And just piggybacking off of Ren, and it was pretty much everything he just said. We got kind of smaller build Chris Redfield. The setting was in daytime, and I remember they said something about dramatic horror. It was different, right? A little bit, and they even said that the setting itself, it could. How do you say it? The sun could affect Chris in a certain way. I'm not sure if you guys could double check me on that, but he said if it was too much heat, it would affect Chris in some way. And as you guys said, there was a lot more enemies when they first showed it, and it looked absolutely beautiful. I was like, oh my goodness, this is Resident Evil 4 but on steroids. I mean, no pun intended with Chris, but I mean, it looked absolutely amazing, and it did make you feel like Chris was helpless, right? Even though he's a little bit more jacked, but
A little bit.
a little bit. Yeah, I mean, compared to from Code Veronica from last time we saw him, but I mean, yeah,
Code Veronica was like a normal
College
human being.
freshman versus senior.
yeah. I mean, Code Veronica, he was still. I mean, he was pretty good build, but then he became like a
It was
commando
all in the
in
chest,
RE5.
then it was all in the arms.
Yeah, Chris has always been a pretty bulky guy, though, since the original game. Yeah, if you actually look at his model, right, he's been bulky though.
Yeah.
But 5 made it look realistic.
Yeah,
I guess.
that's.
Modern day graphics tend to add a few things.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Indeed.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I first saw the trailer when I was in high school. The trailer that all of us saw, I assume, the same one where you see him surrounded by a swarm of enemies and he's out in the sunlight.
Mhm.
I saw that and I'd really enjoyed 4 previously because 4 was the game that I came in on, and then I went back, and then it was exciting to go forwards and try out 5. So I saw that trailer, and I just, with the daytime horror, I know it was hit and miss. Some people loved it and others really didn't. I saw all the enemies surrounding Chris in a daylight environment, and I thought, wow, this is pretty sinister. It's actually got quite a sinister vibe to it. So I picked it up in a used game store a little while after it came out, and yeah, took it for a spin and loved it. So that's how I found it.
For me, I probably have played it the least. You guys are saying like watch the original trailer in high school. I actually didn't play any Resident Evil until like April last year, where I was doing a franchise series of just going down mainline games 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to now I'm on 8, just playing them all once through. And 5 was one of those games that everyone was like, Max, you're gonna have a rough time with it. Shiva's not that good. This is such a down. Like a lot of people were like really down on 5 and 6. And I was like, well, that's sad to hear, but you know what? Let's give it a chance. And I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't think Shiva's AI was bad at all. I didn't see the trailer you guys are talking about, but I do like the thing that comes to mind with that is the previous Resident Evil games, it's very like, it's dark, it's cramped, it's crowded, you feel very isolated, while this is like daytime and open. I would almost call it more like apocalyptic as opposed to like, oh, the zombies are only in this house, we might be fine. But to see like the town swarming gave such a different feel to it, which I really appreciate. And then yeah, the more over the top action, but you say that and then you look at 4 and you're like, is it really that over the top? But yeah, that's how I got introduced to it.
Oh, that's actually a really good take what you just said about especially the whole apocalyptic kind of feel to it. Kind of like a World War Z kind of feel.
Like it's scaling, because like in 4 you're like, okay, so it's just this village, and then you get to another village. Here it's like, I'm sorry to tell you this, all of Africa are now shooting spaghetti zombie wads or whatever that they're trying to shove in your mouth.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a whole country versus a small portion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it pretty much kind of try to compensate it from the lack of kind of crampness and claustrophobia with like a lot more swarm in a way. That was a really good take. That's really, really good.
It was especially so the DLCs, I know we're gonna talk about those later. I forgot to play them until yesterday, so I was like, oh god, I missed these. I was like going through them. Those DLCs really show that, especially, and I forget which one Jill is in, where it's just this this endless just swarm of guys. And sure, you got the sniper rifle, you're kidding them, like headshot, and then you turn to your right and there's like 10 more running at you. It was really freaky, but really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a side question before we move on.
Sure.
It's gonna be real quick, but since we talked about Chris's altered physique in that trailer, like, did you guys like see the internet like going off and saying that he was on steroids and stuff like that, and did you think that this sort of change to his physique like made sense?
Well, I mean, it's the game kind of gave us a little bit more context as well, like why Chris is so buff, because like you saw what happened when he fought against Wesker, right? So he wasn't strong enough to even do anything. Second time around, he's able to push him and do some damage to him, via gameplay, right? But the man is in the military, right? Realistically speaking, he's going to get jacked up considering the stuff he's be fighting. I mean, have you played Code Veronica? I'm like, the man took a beating from West Australia. It wasn't even a fair fight. So that and all the BOWs and whatnot, he had every right to be jacked up, right? And plus, given the time frame though, it's not unrealistic for him to get that jacked up because he's already a big guy as he was.
I think it was like several years after Code Veronica. I think it was from 1998 to 2006, then 2009. So it's been a long, significant time for someone to get that jacked up to go against a superhuman enemy like Wesker.
Yeah, but not in that though. You won't go by canon timeline though. 2001 was the last time you saw I think it was 2001. You saw a slim Chris with umbrellas in. Then fast forward up to Revelations, which was 2006, and then Lost in Nightmares. Man was still pretty jacked up. That's pretty good enough time.
It was 2009. I mean, the guy's arms put Hulk Hogan to shame. I mean, what do you expect?
Like, I would say it's totally reasonable. It's not like, oh, look, there's Doom Guy or BJ from Wolfenstein. He's not built like a refrigerator. I'd say it's still in the realm of reason. Like I said, military training. He knows what he's going up against. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I've seen the jokes, but I think it's reasonable, honestly.
Yeah, but his triceps had triceps. So, I mean, it was
like, I'm
Oh,
sorry that he walks in the room and demasculates all of us. It makes us go, God, I wish I need to go to the gym.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much how I looked at it, man. Like, God damn, I want to get that build. Let's go.
So, real life, I'm a dex build. Seeing him, a strength build. I'm just like, oh, God, damn it.
Feeling a bit left out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw the whole thing really as more, as people were saying earlier, the progression of time. I thought to myself, yeah, it's been several years in the timeline, so a natural progression of time. However, I do have one gripe in regards to the whole Chris being built like a brick wall and something that you see in the game. So
I guess that boulder wasn't going to punch itself, so...
I was about to mention that, right? This man can literally yeet a boulder into lava, yet he punches those chainsaw dudes in the game, and they barely flinch. What are those motherfuckers made of?
Suspension of disbelief.
Morbium. That's what he made.
I took it like he was hearing his theme song at the end. He's like, now's the time! And just was going into it. While the chainsaw guys, there's a lot of like, oh, God, shit, the blades.
In defense of that, though, like, borrowing that as gameplay of entry, right, he was building up momentum with that boulder, right? So it wasn't like he, punched a chainsaw guy repeatedly while the same amount of force, right? Because that wouldn't be feasible. You could kill him.
Like, builds up to like, dunk, dunk,
yeah, right? Like, imagine a meteor on the side as he was like, punching that boulder and he knocked it out of his place.
He was playing Metal Gear Rising Revengeance and he was just getting a combo.
I would like to throw out that we are trying to rationalize a human being punching a 12-foot long and wide boulder into lava.
It's fine.
No, but here, in Chris's defense, though, in that first trailer, though, I remember there was one little portion where he actually punched the crowd of those, like, Majini people, and he was able to at least knock back at least, 4 or 5 of them. So
a little bit more than that, honestly.
Yeah, a little bit. So, I mean, it is pretty far-fetched from regular humans to punching a boulder. I mean, but yeah, that's Chris for you, man.
I mean, in fairness, though, it is possible for us to push a boulder. Like, we have the manpower to do it, right? But no, Chris is built different. That's all we need to know. All right.
I'm just going to say that is the funniest moment in the game, and I'm going to save that for the last question because I have a lot to say about that.
It was so hype. Like, I knew it was coming, but then when it came, I'm like, yeah!
All right. I guess we can move on to number 2 then. Hey, Ren, read that all.
Okay, give me 1 second because I have to go to the doc. Okay, since this is a sequel to Resident Evil 4, do you think that the general gameplay has improved or regressed with this entry?
I would say improved, honestly. Like, bar none, given...
It depends, doesn't it? Like, objectively, it's an improvement. Alderon's motions is a bit smoother. How you control feels a little bit more kind of... To me, is a little less awkward. RE4's control scheme always felt a little bit stifled to me. I never found movement in that game particularly easy. It was always kind of a bit stilted. I mean, the fact that you can at least kind of sort of ish, it just felt a little bit smoother in RE5. But obviously, people's subjective opinions will heavily affect that.
My apologies. Real quick though, 4 is everybody's love child. I know that's why like you said, subjectively people would disagree with that. But come on, like you guys should sit down and play the game though. 5, yeah, like you said, improve everything like for the movement, the aim and all that stuff. But not only that though, it added more tools for the characters. Like you could go behind them after you stagger and insta kill them, without the risk of popping out a plaga.
Also,
stuff like that.
Head stomp on the ground would also prevent the plaga from coming out. With RE4, they just randomly popped up and you didn't know how to contain them or anything unless you had like a flash grenade or something.
Yeah, like the tools, the gameplay loop though is more in favor of the player now because there's so much more options how you can approach things. Whereas in RE4, it's usually the same thing where you got to move away, bang, 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 throw a flashbang, and move forward.
Well, the question I want to ask was like, because it's obviously you guys have played a lot more than I have, and for me, a lot of it is kind of a meshed blur. In terms of like soul mechanics, RE4 doesn't. Well, let me rephrase. RE5 doesn't add that much more solely mechanically, right? Like, okay, your inventory system is different, the environment is different, but like there isn't besides those combo attacks, would you say there are like any specific things that this game added blank?
Yeah, like from 4, I mean, if we're talking about like just general gameplay, right? I'm assuming so.
Right, base
From
mechanics.
Okay, I mean, so I'm gonna include, the partner system with this, right? We had Ashley in RE4. I mean, Sheva's a huge upgrade from Ashley. I feel like, I mean, sometimes I did relegate her to just like, give me healing items here and there, but I mean, I'll take her any day over Ashley.
Yeah, she does something versus Ashley, who just
I loved Ashley.
Get you killed.
I was looking at the question and like trying to think of it as like what gameplay was really added. I was like, well, the same base fighting is the same, except I think you guys make a perfect point. Like, what's the upgrade? Shiva, you got a buddy system now.
Yeah.
And like what you could do and get away with, especially when you're playing co-op, I think is like the one big upgrade.
It's largely tweaks under the hood. I think a lot of it.
Yeah.
Really.
A lot of small things.
You're not really going to notice, but adds in. 5 does make an effort of trying to make the game a bit more environmental. In that you're kind of using what's around you, not just like have a gun, upgrade it, shoot dudes. There's boss fights, especially. Whether it's the initial fight using the furnace, whether you're taking on Ouroboros later on, you've got to start again. Get together like your flamethrower and use that. The Wesker fights later on, stuff like that. It's largely under the hood tweaks. And stuff that you're not really going to pay attention to notice. But I think it all adds up generally. That's the one notable thing I would say, though, is like environmental stuff. Using barrels and, bits and pieces, stuff like that.
Oh, sorry, real quick, though. Like, is it like the same line think of, like, going from Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil 2? Like, what does Resident Evil 2 generally improve upon that makes it better than 1, right? So you can use the same line thinking for that. And we can also go on down a list of like general improvements that just makes the game, the quality of life, the sandbox much better in contrast to its predecessor. In this case, Resident Evil 5. Again, you have more tools and like Shadow said, environments, whatever. You have more options to deal with stuff in contrast to Resident Evil 4.
I do feel like an observation. I'm curious to see if any of you guys agree. I did feel like the game was a bit more lacking in ammo comparatively to 4, but I also feel like the combat system, the melee attacking system, was implemented in such a way where it can act in the place of lacking ammo. And I greatly enjoyed one of the biggest parts of playing the game for me was the combat system, and still is the hand-to-hand combat system. There's nothing more gratifying for me than watching Chris Redfield just punch a dude into a wall and send like loads of guys around him flying.
I actually agree with you on that one though, because you have a smaller inventory, so realistically you're gonna have like less ammo than usual compared to like say 4. But the melee though is definitely a lot stronger because you can party kill up to 3 guys at once. More often than not in contrast to 4, at least in my anecdotal evidence of that.
Yeah, that was something I was gonna bring up. I've said this a bunch of like my biggest enemy, and I know it's a core mechanic in Resident Evil, is inventory management. It's like it's a hallmark of the game, yeah, but it's the part I like the least, and I felt like I really hit that in 5. as opposed to 4. And the times where it's like, okay, so Shiva can hand you stuff and you can hand her stuff. Great. When you're getting killed by that one was Scorpion Fly boss, whatever that thing was called, and like you're trying to be like, okay, you need the pistol ammo and I need the submachine gun, you know, like that kind of a thing. Those parts got annoying, but I definitely get that, you know, with two people firing guns, it needed that kind of system. And yeah, the melee combat really did pull through in a lot of situations.
You know what? Since we're talking about the inventory system, I mean, can we talk about a little bit about from transitioning from the merchant from RE4 to just actually like an in-game menu in between like chapters?
Hold on, before
Like
we
how that affected the overall gameplay?
Yeah, before we touch on that real quick, I just wanted to add on to one point. I don't think we brought up the fact that there's also different melee combinations. So there is a situation where you could do like a strong melee attack that will do the most damage. Like Chris will make some noise like he's angry and ready to go, and then he does like a backhand or something, and that will also do a lot of damage to the enemies. So that added in a lot more variety to the quick time events and the QTs in the game, because once again, your partner can also like do this push and pull system where Sheva hits someone, then Chris will hit someone, and then she'll do like a hyper finisher, and that will be a strategy in the game. And they sort of like try to do some more of that in RE6, but that's another podcast for another day. But I do appreciate that they actually took the time to make it fleshed out a little bit more than usual.
You actually reminded me of something, actually. Now this is not technically possible by any means, though. But when you fight Jill, if for somehow if you enable the command for Chris to do a straight punch, that would actually one-shot her.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so like
Emotionally, you just knock her out.
Oh,
yeah. So like, no, the melee is really strong though, and for Chris in particular though, like yeah, he can actually one-shot Jill. Not sure because she has really low health, which would make sense given how the fight is. But yeah, like you don't want to be on the other end of that punch.
So this is a mechanic question, and this might be like my PC master race kicking in a little bit. Okay, so depending on the difficulty you guys are playing on, how fast did you have to respond to the quick time events? Because is it just a PC thing that it's like insanely fast, or am I just terrible?
It's across the board.
No,
It
got killed a couple times.
doesn't really change for difficulty. Like, I think Resident Evil 4, I always had the impression that it was slightly sharper timing. Some of it, if you're playing on like professional, I always think back to like the Krauser knife scene when I first played on professional. It took me forever to get through that. I just felt really like you would just had to almost guess what was going on. But 5 was pretty standard across the board.
Because I was when I was going up against Wesker in the DLCs, like I was really reminded of that. It's like you have almost a quarter of a second to do F or V, and if you get the wrong one, he just like instant kills you.
Oh, when he charges attack, he does that regardless.
Yeah, he charges, then he rips out your heart, Kalima style. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Why?
Yeah, no, that attack is, you have to guess that. It's just the case for all of them. You're kind of, the idea is you're meant to like get hit by that, so your partner kind of helps you out. That's kind of how it's designed. So if you guess right, then great.
The other fight I just got it was the U8, the giant bug on the platform, and when they did like the big guillotine move kind of a thing. I remember that was another one where it's like, good luck, and if you didn't get it, you'd just be killed instantly.
I did struggle with the QTEs in 5 comparatively to full disclosure. I have a muscular condition, so my hand reaction times are a fair bit slower. I managed them reasonably well in 4, but as somebody who has that issue, in 5 I thought they were a lot quicker, and for somebody in my position, actually pretty tricky to pull off, even on a reasonable difficulty. So just an observation, but I do have a bias attached there. Maybe it's just me.
Real quick, Ren, sorry, I don't disagree with that notion though. The quick time events are certainly fast, but it was like that in Resident Evil 4 as well, in the GameCube and PS2, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who was experienced in it. And I think they actually toned it down a bit with the HD versions. Instead of just having random buttons, though, they just have like preset button presses.
Right. I couldn't remember if it was like specific to either game or if it was like a PC thing of, instead of counting seconds, we count frames per second. And if you if you have 60 frames per second, it's super, super fast. Like, I wasn't 100% sure on that, since I came into this party way late instead of like the original PS3 and GameCube and
I don't notice anything really different going from PS3 to PC. I don't know. Like, the only thing I have noticed is that obviously when you're clearly fighting, there are some times where the prompt might disappear quicker than others. But I think that's like designed that way with certain enemies or fights where you have to tap it fast, otherwise you're just dead. But Deva had a question earlier related to the question we're currently on. Do you remember, Deva?
It was the merchant
yeah.
versus the
Yeah, just the because we're talking about the transition from RE4 and to 5, right?
Yeah.
And how that affected the gameplay of like, okay, we have to find the merchant in RE4, but then it was changed to more of a menu kind of select theme with RE5, and how that kind of in a way took away a little bit from, I don't know, it took away
personality.
yeah. I was gonna say personality.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit of a downgrade because me personally, I mean, I was surprised to find a merchant in RE4, but then in RE5, I was waiting to find one, but I guess we didn't have it. But I mean, like you guys said, I mean, it took away a little bit of from RE5 from that perspective.
So, I don't know, because for this one, it's like I like the merchant. I like how corny he is, honestly, and I'm glad he came back in Village. But I feel like what they wanted to do here, and I'm not saying it's like superior or anything, but I kind of get what they were going for. They wanted to do a preparation menu for both players so they can sort all their shit out before they head into battle. And I guess they thought having this hokey guy sort of talk between the lines of both players just didn't feel right. I heard rumors that the merchant was going to be in RE5, but he was ultimately cut from the entire equation.
I think a lot of that comes down to sorry, real quick. I think a lot of that comes down to in RE4, you may not do it the most, but there is some backtracking. You can kind of access a lot of the map most of the time, you know, if you forgot something specific or whatever. So it makes sense to have these like specific spots where the merchant is, and he's a fun and quirky character, and we're not going through menus to get to different zones. While in RE5, it's very much a straight line. This is stage 1 1 1 2 2 1 2 2, like that kind of a thing. So it makes sense to be like, here's your prep, now get in there. While with RE4, you could like, you know, get halfway through an area and be like, God, I'm out of ammo. And if you wanted to, it might take a while. You could run all the way back, go sell your stuff, run all the way forward. Obviously, depending on the zone, if they didn't lock you in, but.
I mean, that in a way, it did affect the pacing, though. As you said, I mean, in RE4, if you're out of ammo and the merchant's not around, you're kind of out of luck a little bit, right? But in RE5, I mean, you literally stack before you even start the mission, and as you guys said, since you're playing co-op, right? I mean, it makes sense to kind of have both players ready, and it kind of goes to like, I know we're not going to do the next question yet, but it kind of transitions from more of a kind of survival horror to more of a really action-oriented kind of theme with RE5. Just because you know you're going to go into the mission knowing that you got a full stack of ammo. So there's
also the storage box. The storage box too adds to that, where like you could put away a weapon and then just like stockpile on storage, and then, you know, I ran out of sniper rifle ammo, put away the sniper, grab the shotgun with that storage box.
Also, too, you can just restart the checkpoint if you're out of ammo or out of luck. Like, so if you say you're done with one encounter, right, and you got ammo, just go to the next area, reload the checkpoint after you're done loading in that spot, and then you can go through your customization there. Like, you could do this for like the tentacle monsters. I forgot what they call it, the Ouroboros. You could literally instead just, you know, using a flamethrower, you could literally use a rocket launcher, buy one from the shop after a reload checkpoint, and kill it. Call it a day.
Yep.
So it does kind of take away some urgency. We could literally just restart a checkpoint on the fly.
And sacrificing realism for maybe a bit more convenience, and hey, this is a video game, we're here to have fun kind of a situation.
Sure. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, as the guy said, actually he hit it perfectly. It took away a little bit of the urgency. And I think that's the theme of this from transition from RE4 to 5 to 6. You can see the urgency is, I don't think it's a priority, and they were really catering more to the action side of Resident Evil.
I think the urgency is placed differently. It was placed differently though. Instead for the gameplay though, it's placed for the story. Because, you know, if the characters fail, shit would get real, right? Versus,
Yeah.
See the urgency and the scale of the problem as opposed to the immediate situation.
Yeah, this is a later question, but this game is a lot more serious and the scale is a lot more disastrous with Ouroboros compared to RE4. I'm not saying that like that situation isn't also bad, because I mean actually getting into the States with the infected Plaga, that would be a huge problem, but we're talking like world-ending stuff here as opposed to some dictators being controlled. So that would have been a worse situation if Ouroboros was out into the open.
Right, like fun time Illuminati with a cult, as opposed to here's a worm virus that literally consumes all, like, it's basically the Zerg, like straight up, it will consume all flesh and grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It gets in the ocean, and it's like, oh, this is interesting.
No, I think if it got into the atmosphere in general, it would just completely destroy everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say I always had some issues with the ultimate plot of Resident Evil 5, especially when I used to play it. Like nowadays, I don't know if I care as much, but I always thought it was. I don't know. I never particularly liked it, especially when I think of someone like Albert Wesker, who's always been this very sort of scheming individual, you know, kind of plotting bits and pieces on the side, and you know, he's obviously betrayed his allies and done power and that sort of bits and pieces, and he suddenly goes from, you know, kind of gathering these viruses and plotting from like behind the shadows, Resident Evil 4, to starting Resident Evil 5, he wants to like kill 5 billion people.
Ultimate evolution.
Yeah, that always seemed like too big a logic jump for me. Like, it just seems just not like something he would do.
Yeah, is that kind of segueing into question number 8? So should we answer that now?
I mean, maybe it is.
I don't know.
Let's save it for
let's...
I have a lot to say about that as well. I actually partially disagree with that notion, though, but I'll get to there.
Okay, actually,
write this down,
conversation we had about the Netflix show. That when we get to that question.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to the next one then. So who will read this one? Actually, I just read. Shadow, what about you? Could you read question number 3?
Yeah, very simple. Who's everyone's favorites and least favorite enemies from the game? I would say my least favorite enemy from the game was Sheva.
Oh no, that's question number 3. Shadow.
That's 4.
That's it.
Oh, number 3. Oh, whoops. Oh, even that boss. My points. How do you feel about this game being touted as a bigger departure from the horror formula, including stuff like daytime combat, more turret sections, and cooperative mode?
Okay. Honestly though, like, yeah, it departs from the horror stuff, but you know what? So did Resident Evil 4, but nobody wants to talk about that. But yeah, it definitely does though. But given the story context though, there's only but so much horror you could probably realistically do in a way. Because it was not, it's clear it was not meant to be a full-on horror game anyway. So there was bound to be some, little discrepancies during development. But then again, Capcom did call it a horror game, so you can probably, say what you will about that.
I think the original concept for RE5, to be honest, like, we're gonna go back a little bit from that trailer. I mean, from that trailer, looking at it, I mean, it looked like more of a horror game, but then actually in our finalized version of the game, I mean, they really strayed away from it. I mean, and me personally, I mean, I enjoyed the co-op, especially obviously, playing with an actual friend, right? But then I'll be honest, it did take away from the horror aspect of the game, right? And the whole daylight combat. That as well, like the atmosphere it just fell off. I mean, sure, it's great, you get to see all the enemies and you're surrounded and all that is great. I mean, it's as we discussed earlier there, I mean, the just amount of enemies and all that, but it really did take away from the atmosphere. Like it took RE4's action oriented portion to a whole nother level. And especially, when we added more of the, like we said, like the turret section, I mean, it was fun, but it didn't feel like Resident Evil to me. But that's just my take on that.
I do agree if it took away the atmosphere, though. But say it's not Resident Evil per se, though. Like, well, this is probably talking as in the current year, though. I feel like that's, kind of hard thing to say, considering how different Resident Evil has been, even since day one in a way. I don't know, I'm probably in a different camp on that one though, but
This does go into a question that we have raised on several of these podcasts of this series as what exactly is a Resident Evil game?
Yeah.
This has come up time and time and time again. And what a Resident Evil game in theory is differs depending on who you are, what year it is, what side of the bed you got out of. It has changed throughout. Should it be a mainly horror base, and puzzle solving? Should it be much more action orientated? Should it be whatever the hell Resident Evil 6 was? This has changed over the course of time, unfortunately. Obviously, this was a big break from what it was previously, and for any of it really. But it made, a lot of it kind of made sense. Daytime, the game had been stuck in like fighting at night for like 10 years. What the hell? You've got a graphics engine. It's pretty decent. Exploit it. Have stuff happening in the daytime. They don't need to like be hiding in like in the nighttime. Not taking on just like not fighting vampires. What does it really matter? Go for it. And you got the co-op of it as well. It's about bloody time. I think by that point that they got co-op involved into the game, been sorely lacking. The only games that had any kind of co-op were kind of off the beat side games. As much as it hurts me to say Outbreak was that, but sadly that's what it was. It was about time it reached its way into a main series to have some actual proper co-op, and it made for a better experience.
As far as 5 goes, it's one of those situations where obviously times and opinions change as much as the games themselves have changed over the years. 5 is one of those entries where when I initially played it as a young teen or a younger teen, I really thought, even comparatively to 4, the sheer disconnect from what we'd first had from the survival horror side of things was a bit too much in 5. And that coupled with elements of the plot that Shadow made reference to earlier with Wesker, that I'm sure we'll all get to later, was enough to make me really dislike it. But, and I found this while playing it for my channel the other day. Now that I'm older and we've had like several more games come out over time, that feeling of disconnect has actually lessened, and it's actually quite a reasonable entry for me now. I've got less of an issue now than I did back then, so I think it's just changing tastes and preferences for a lot of people.
Okay, here's the thing.
Take.
Here's the thing, real quick. I just want to go real quick. Sorry, cut you off. But I feel as though I'm trying not to look at this in a lens of just what is a Resident Evil game to me. Like, I feel like you will have your own personal preference on this, surely, but I feel there's so many eras of RE now, and there's been so much implementation as the series progressed, from even RE2, where you're like stockpiling ammo and you're just basically going around and doing a killing spree of like Leon B and having like 50 shotgun shells. So I mean, as the series progressed, action just sort of came along with it. I do agree this is the most like biggest case, because we're talking like gun turret sections, etc. But there are differing eras of RE, and this is just one of them. For the most part, I liked it because this is just basically a progression of RE4, which is a game that essentially revolutionized the entire third-person over-the-shoulder landscape.
It's got to be taken in context as well. I mean, this is 2009. This is the year of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 coming out. It was just it's a trend in gaming that has been going on. Left 4 Dead 2 came out this year. This is a trend in gaming that was going on at the time where games were progressively getting faster and faster. It's something we've seen for years, and to some extent still tries to happen. It was inevitable that Resident Evil was going to have to follow the trend, and something else we've also talked about many times before is the fact that Capcom with Resident Evil have tried to kind of semi-capture the trend at the time. You look at other games of the series, with like even the ones that didn't work so well, like the name completely and utterly escapes me. Not Raccoon City, the other one, the really terrible one.
Umbrella Corps.
That one, yeah, that exactly. What was that? That wasn't a Resident Evil game. That was an attempt to try and quote cash in, unquote, on the current what was sort of going on and popular at the time. The upcoming game, which has been obviously on the cutting block for about a year, we've heard nothing for, the PvP one is exactly the same sort of thing. So it's not a surprise that Resident Evil 5 kind of went down that route as well. I don't think it really hindered it by any stretch of imagination. I think it probably needed a dose of adrenaline. It's just that became like a whole attache case full of it by the time we were all said and done.
The only thing I have to say on that is that, I mean, it seems universal that no one really bothers or plays Resident Evil for the multiplayer experience only. I'm talking about like the vast majority. I'm sure there are some people that do like that, but I'm speaking solely on the fact of the people who like the single player content a little bit more than that. Like, Reverse isn't working out, all the other stuff isn't working out, so that's just a no-brainer that those people will say, I don't feel like this feels like RE to me. I want the single player horror stuff or even the action stuff. I'll just take any sort of campaign over PvP.
Yeah, it's maybe it's a little unfair to use those as examples, but to say what is or isn't a Resident Evil game is like an impossible question now, because the series has gone on for 25 years and has encompassed about every single type of horror you could think of at this point. What else left is there? So it's done it all.
So I mean, from people who started off from like the fixed camera angle from the very late 90s, the transition from the actual survival horror to RE4 to then RE5, I noticed a lot of people, I wouldn't say didn't completely like it, but I mean, they kind of like, it wasn't their cup of tea, right? But now, I forgot who mentioned it, but now after playing through the games like RE6 and going Revelations and like playing RE Village and all that and RE2 Remake, now looking back at 5, you could see the transition. It's like, okay, it does make sense after so many years. But from that point, when it first came out, there was a huge difference. It was like, okay, well, I played Resident Evil because, I mean, yeah, there is action, but I really like the whole survival horror. But then you transition that to RE5, there was a clear difference. Yeah. And this goes back to RE4, and you guys know that the first, 2/3 of the game, right? I would say it's a little bit more horror themed, right? And then the last portion with the island, it really did focus more on the action portion, right? And I feel like they magnified that to RE5 to the next level, though. And that's
I will say in RE4's case, though, the most horror it have ever been was honestly the village. No, best part of the game, by the way.
And the regenerators, yeah.
Regenerators, sure. But once you get to the castle, and in the last part of the game, it goes full action, right? The one advantage that Resident Evil 4 had, though, over 5, and I will admit this, is the atmosphere. It has a really stronger atmosphere, like you mentioned, right? But the problem at hand is that, like, it started the whole action trend, though. But realistically speaking, though, like, it kind of started beforehand, like Ren mentioned. I will say Resident Evil 3 pretty much started a more action trend because of the stakes that the game was in. Contrast to 1 and 2, right? You're in the middle of a freaking city. You're bound to run into more enemies, so thus the game will lead to more action or irritation. Now go to Resident Evil 5. You're in the middle of a freaking country. The whole country is infested with the Ouroboros and stuff, whatever, right? So logically speaking, the game is going to be more action oriented versus Resident Evil 4, which is only that one isolated area.
I believe Resident Evil 5, it definitely was, and I think it still is the highest selling Resident Evil game ever.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty sure. So, whatever you make of the game, it brought a lot of new people to the series. It gave it a spin. So you can't criticize that. It's easy to look at it and kind of it's the ironic one where like Resident Evil 4 probably, if you are like really entrenched in the view that Resident Evil should have stayed kind of in its original form, Resident Evil 4 did significantly more damage to the series in that view than Resident Evil 5 ever could have done, because Resident Evil 4 brought over the top. Resident Evil 4 brought all of these different changes, which Resident Evil 5 kind of largely took and just kind of tweaked around the hood. But Resident Evil 4 is widely viewed as such a great game that people can't really have a go at it very much, and so they have a go at Resident Evil 5 instead. It's very similar to Resident Evil Remake Resident Evil Remake 2, which of course changed the entire system all over again. And if you were of the generation before, think, oh, it shouldn't have gone like that. I'm perfectly happy it was. Remake 2 was the one that made all the changes, but it's probably one of the best Resident Evil games I've ever made. So when Resident Evil 3 came out and it wasn't quite to level, suddenly that got all the hate.
well, the one who starts the innovation versus the one after you start realizing all the wrinkles and all the issues
Yeah,
with it.
pretty
Yeah.
much. It's a bit of a false, it's a bit of fallacy going on. It's a minor point in the grand scheme of things, but I think it's worth noting.
That's valid. But
Well, it
something
also
that-
does apply to the context at hand for certain titles, right? Because no, you could Resident Evil 3, for example. Yeah, sure, no, it followed what Resident Evil 2 did, all right, but it didn't do it to the most extent it could. Resident Evil 5, though, at least they actually went out the way to improve what's there versus going backwards in some areas. But again, like I get what you mean on that one for sure.
something I think is also important about like the sense of horror. And okay, so before it was all cramped, dark, isolated. You have 10 bullets and there's like 2 zombies, and because that there's a major threat. While in RE5, you have oodles and oodles of ammo, and you get a pistol that can hold 70 rounds, and there's all these zombies coming at you, and it's not as darkness that's open. The first thing I would think of is darkness. I'm trying to remember the exact quote. I'm going to say it wrong. But the imagination is the ultimate source of all horror, which is why many times in horror games, I haven't played Outlast 1 and 2, but I remember Outlast 2 being, like, people had complaints about it. You could see what was going to kill you, and you could see what the problem is much quicker. There wasn't a chance for the imagination to take hold. While in the earlier Resident Evils, it's dark, you hear a scream in the distance, you hear a sound in the distance, you have no idea. You have to overcompensate that with this, like I said earlier, the sense of scale with RE5, because you can see everything coming, so it loses that sense of horror, and they have to do it in other ways, which is why it leads more towards action. And the turret section's kind of same kind of thing. You can see what's coming, so there's not as much that imagination working for you, I think would be a big aspect of it. The other aspect, I think, is co-op in horror games itself, with the same kind of logic as before of when you're in a mansion, it's dark, you're alone, you're by yourself, what are you going to do? With co-op, you lose immersion no matter what, because at any time I can turn to the right and I can see my fiance. We could say, haha, I just shot that guy in the head. And it takes you out of it, as opposed to when you're by yourself alone, it's dark with your headphones in and you're fully immersed. I think that's another aspect that took away from horror and added to action, because they need to overcompensate that lack of immersion by more threats, more problems. And when it is those city sections where it's like there's just tons of dudes coming at you, I think the game really does shine. It's just a different kind of horror challenge.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say is I think the other side of the coin to this would be Resident Evil 7, which then went away from all the action and kind of went back to this sort of idea that you're raising here. And that's probably why I absolutely adore the game. So
I mean, like, one zombie when you have 3 bullets versus 50 zombies when you have 100, it's different kinds of feelings, different kinds of emotions.
But is one inherently worse than the other?
Yeah,
I guess it just depends on the player then,
Game.
It's not
Like,
a quality thing, it's a subjective thing. That's just what I want to add in.
Is it more scary to be by yourself with a pistol and 2 zombies, or is it more scary to have like the biggest chain gun in the world, but there's so many that it doesn't matter and it doesn't make a difference? It's inevitable. Like, which is scary? And that comes down to personality.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So I guess we can move on to, that was a good point, but we got to move on to question number 4. So I will read that. So
All right.
who is your favorite and least favorite enemy within the game? We're talking about like normal enemies here, and the next one is bosses.
Sheva doesn't count.
No.
Oh, can I start? You don't mind if I start on that one?
Sure.
Actually, from transitioning from RE4 to RE5, and I would say not least, but I would say most disappointed was actually the chainsaw guys in RE5. And the reason being, because from RE4, what do we have? We had a lot more chainsaw people, right? The chainsaw sisters, and we got Dr. Salvador, right? And here in RE5, in the actual main campaign, I think we only saw them twice in the early portion of the game.
So you can see them 2 times, but second time you
Yeah.
fight 2 of them, I believe. So
Yeah, but I mean, and that was it. So I wouldn't say I didn't least. I mean, I love the chainsaw guys. I mean, they freak me the hell out. I mean, I think that's the scariest enemies in RE5, to be honest.
Yeah, because
But,
they instant kill you, right? So you treat them
exactly.
as the biggest threat.
And I mean, just getting chainsawed, right? That death scene, it's pretty gruesome, right? I mean, so I was a little bit down on that. I was expecting maybe we'll get like a bigger Dr. Salvador, right? I mean, we saw Chris get jacked up. Why not the Chainsaw Man? But I guess they didn't go that route. But and then favorite, like I said, I love the chainsaw motif, to be honest. So I liked it, and I guess I didn't like it.
Yeah, that would have been a perfect time to put in the Super Salvadors that show up in RE4 Mercs, where they're bigger, stronger, faster, and they have the double-bladed chainsaw that could cut your head off if they're super close. But they didn't do that for some reason, so I definitely agree that like the chainsaw men in this game were very few and far between.
I have a question regarding the chainsaw guys, actually. Now, I'm going to need some clarification. I'm wondering if you guys can do this. Somebody actually told me regarding the chainsaw guys that if you're playing anything veteran or above, or maybe if it's just professional, that the chainsaw guys will go down and then get back up a second time. Can anybody confirm
Yes.
or deny?
Yes,
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
The
Is that
ones,
scripted?
yes, it's scripted. The ones in, I believe it's the ones in red pants, or go down, and the ones in blue will go down, and they'll get up, go rampaging, and then you have to down them again quickly. Might be the other way
Okay.
around, but yeah, that is scripted.
Right.
Yeah, but the only time that happened, though, to my recollection, like straight up to my memory, would be the first time you meet him, because he goes down first, pick up the key, he gets back up, try to kill you again. That's when you kill him permanently.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
only a
a few
couple of
times,
places
though.
that ever happens. Yeah, one's in the campaign, one's in Desperate Escape. It happens once or twice in there in the map. It's all the fighting you do in that, but it's pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
Despite only seeing them, like I missed a bit of what you were saying earlier because I had to just quickly grab something. But despite seeing them less, I honestly felt like comparatively to the Salvadors we would see in 4, Salvadors always felt like in 4 a side boss, a bit of a threat, but otherwise easily dispatchable if you knew how to deal with them. Whereas in 5, they legitimately felt like they'd gone from side bosses right up to I am a full-fledged boss and I am going to be a legitimate danger.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. Typically because they tended to fight you with other dudes around them, which didn't help. But they're pretty beefy. They were pretty hard to take down. I don't think they were the most dangerous themselves. It's just that it was very easy to get caught up fighting something else and you get ambushed out of nowhere. They were surprisingly quick.
That's actually something I was going to bring up. Like, all right, this is something that I have a bias for in like most video games, and it felt like this happened at least a decent amount in RE5. I will always, I apologize about that. I will always hate enemies that can just like instantly kill you. And I recognize that like, oh, the chainsaw guys didn't always do that, but I do remember a lot where it's like, I'm full health and life is great. And I get it. You're getting hit with a chainsaw. You're going to die. But in terms of like gameplay, it always felt like it was kind of stolen from me. You know what I mean? That were like someone would just kind of like snatch you and you'd be done. So
yeah, I can understand.
It's hard, like Alien, to bring a different game, Alien Isolation. I felt like that a lot, where it's like my weapons are ineffective, and if I touch him, game over. And I never really liked that. So for like least favorite, for least favorite enemy, I know it's kind of a cop out to say like anything that instant kills you, because that shit drives me nuts. But that would be mine. Definitely.
So I'm gonna do mine real quick, and then I'm gonna let other people go. So I guess favorite enemy to fight. Honestly, this is gonna be a weird one, but I like fighting the JJs, the guys with the giant Gatling guns, because you can do so much to them. You can do the super backhand and you can kill them, and they're also a threat from long range, so if they keep shooting you on professional, that's a big deal. But there's many ways to dispatch them, and I guess if I had like an honorable mention, I know people hate this enemy with a passion, but I honestly figured out how to beat him, and he's not so bad. I would say the giant reaper, the roach enemy that you fight, that you can like knock off his limbs and he can insta kill you and stuff like that. It's a sort of push and pull.
I love and hate those guys.
Yeah, I can see the love and I can see the love and hate relationship. I just personally like to use the flash and then shoot the pus sacks on the body and then kill it instantly from there. But it was a pretty fun fight.
Like, I like them because they're puzzles. But the problem is though, like it's hard to enjoy Rubik's Cube when 4 people are stabbing you. But like when it's just you and the Reaper, you're like, oh, I have to do this and I have to hit these sacks and then I have to go in and do the finish. You know, it was fun to work with, but the problem is when you're doing that while 3 dudes are firing rocket launchers at you and there's 2 of them, so you can't sit there and focus on the one. And
I mean,
I
the
think
game
that's where the
introduces
Reapers
it
got
pretty
nuts.
well. Like the first time you fight the Reapers, there aren't any other dudes around unless you specifically
Right.
have them around. Like the second time when you have to deal with 1 or potentially 2 if you're playing on professional, and there are other dudes around, yeah, that's a really obnoxious fight. Like that sucks.
They're fun in isolation. Once they're in a group, it's like this is you know.
It's pretty brutal. But
Also, yeah,
I never found them too bad. You know, they can be real bullet sponges though if you don't know quite what you're doing. And the first time, like it can be pretty frustrating, especially because like if you kind of get caught out of position, you can't really dodge them. There's no press X to dive out the way. You're just dead. Which I would have liked like a tiny window to be able to like try and do something about rather than just you're screwed because you can't like it's not like nowadays with like Resident Evil Remake 3 where you can just dodge in any direction you kind of want. You were just stuck there and you're just like, well, this is bad.
Okay, the Reapers actually. I do agree. They were the first and probably the only enemies that actually put the fear of God in me. Because they just spawn out of nowhere. Because the first time playing, right, they spawn out of nowhere, and once they catch up to you, they instantly kill you. Like that's literally the first time I actually took an enemy very seriously. Because if you chainsaw guy, you seen him before in a previous game, whatever, right? But the giant reapers though, no, that's not a really uncommon enemy. You'll see, they just spawn out of nowhere and instantly kill you on the spot. So I actually really do like those enemies for that reason.
They make me feel pretty uncomfortable purely because of the threat, the way they lurch towards you, because after you've encountered them and they've killed you once, you know exactly what they're gonna do. So when you're being backed into a corner, you start to feel a little bit uncomfortable. I have a bit of a fight or flight reflex with them. It's like get as far away from it as possible. And also, one quick question in relation to these guys as well. The second time you encounter them, in the room where you have to operate the switch to go across on the platform, I believe there's some RNG involved in that, right? Like they can pop down from a different spot in the ceiling, RNG depending.
Yes. It's very RNG dependent. You always will fight 2, to my recollection though, but they will not always spawn at the same little sacks.
Yeah. Just wondering.
All right. Good.
So,
yeah, I was gonna say, as far as myself, I have to admit, probably one of my favorite enemies to fight is probably Wesker, actually, which I know goes slightly against like what I just said earlier about like I think his plot's a bit silly, which I still do, but I think just as pure context of fighting in the game, I think he's actually quite entertaining.
But
he is a boss, right? So you want to say that for the next question?
There is boss fight. Oh yeah, my bad. Okay, well, as far as general enemies, then, goodness me, I'd probably say I actually quite enjoyed fighting the giant Majinnies in the village. I think they're pretty wild to fight against, especially because like some of their attacks will actually hit like other people around them, so it's pretty chaotic. They're dangerous, but they're pretty fair. I mean, they just look amazing. I think they're great entertainment to fight against. So I probably have to give a shout out to them. As far as least favorite enemies, I could meme and say the snake because I died to one once and I never went down.
I get that though. I get it.
So what was it? Was I was doing it on my own with Sheva and it was in the puzzle area where you've got to turn the various dials. You've got the beams of light that you can't cross because you'll like get hurt. And in one of the side rooms, there's some pots you can smash. And there was a snake in one of them, which I failed to stab. It hit me. It put me on bleeding. But the problem is because we were in the light section, Cheryl was programmed to stay up top on the platform and would not come down.
Yep.
And she just stood there, and it took me about 30 seconds to just stand there and bleed out. And I just like, great.
I would have loaded a checkpoint at that point.
I mean, I was pretty furious. I might as well have done, to be honest. But as far as actual least favorite enemy in the game, I don't know. Probably like the clam guys. I don't remember their precise name.
They're called the Dwala.
Yeah, one
Yeah, though
mutation.
they're pretty. I was not a fan of fighting them. I thought they were really. They're just really frustrating to do, especially in groups. Really, really aggravating to fight. When you're trying to do other bits and pieces, and if you're getting swarmed, and then you're like having to, I've got to shoot that in like its back leg / tail, and you just can't really control doing that. And especially on your own, it's a horrendous nightmare because the AI did not usually have a very good job of actually shooting it correctly. And there'd be sort of standing targets, so I'd probably throw it for them.
In a similar vein, I'd say the cephalo, the column of flesh that would come out of them. There's definitely a lot of times where it'd be like, okay, shoot this guy in the head, and then like one of those would show up and be like, I don't have the ammo for this.
I guess
I need to leave.
I guess it would be just a little bit more annoying with the clam enemies because they can not only do this like very annoying headbutt, but they can also do an insta kill if they do this bite and you're close and they grab you and they put you on bleeding instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how they just come in. They have this giant mouth, right? They can just bite you or slash you up, right? They just walk up to you and just headbutt you into the ground.
They have to assert
Gotta commit it.
dominance at least once, just so you know who's in charge.
Yeah.
Well, at least they go down to a freaking flashbang, though. But I just find those enemies comedic. All they do is just walk up to you, bong you, and what want to do?
That, and sometimes, especially in the towards the very back end of the game, some of those guys pop out of Magini that have got the full body armor on, so it's very hard to hit them and get them into a stunned state.
Armor as well. Yeah. Who thought that was a good idea?
Someone can't come good.
Hits the player.
Someone got paid money to make that decision, and it makes me sick.
Yeah, they're bad enemies, very bad.
Are you guys on here though? Because we should probably move on because we're running a little bit behind on.
I didn't give you mine yet.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead then.
Just a few seconds. Yeah, I'm actually, in terms of a favorite enemy, I'm pretty much emulating Shadow here. The big, huge Magini dudes in the village. The way they just lunge at you and swing around, absolutely loving those. Really enjoyable. I like carting them around and blasting them with a magnum. The whole village section was just fun for me. It was one of my favorite bits because you've got a wide open space and you're just going around, and those enemies are cool. And least favorites, oh god, what are the give me a minute, my brain's gone blank. I would actually have to say, are we classing like big sub boss enemies as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. Minigunners. Not a fan of the Minigunners because they are just like
Poor JJ.
They're walking tanks, and it's just like I had so much displeasure when I was finishing my stream last night just dealing with them, because the bit at the end where you've got two of them simultaneously while you've got 1,000,001 Magini just around you, I was having to cart them into narrow corridors with mines and then blast them with about 70 rounds of grenade launcher, and it was
I mean, to be fair, given the last time I played Resident Evil 5 was doing a co-op run of this game with unupgraded M92Fs, and that was it. That fight was pretty hideous. But in their defense, it was still quite kind of fun. As disgustingly difficult as it was, because we couldn't even kill the Reapers in time. Still fighting Reapers and double JJs, so it's oh jeez.
Yeah,
but
it's
like,
not a fun time.
But I can't really hate them too much. Like the guy smoking a cigar, like that's pretty badass.
Living his best life.
Exactly.
Yeah, while getting shot in the face, he's still smoking.
How can you hate that man? He's smoking us a big fat cigar, wielding like a 50-pound minigun and backpack and ammo on him. Like that's pretty. You wish you could do that.
Yeah, I'll give him one bit of credit. They're usually wearing sunglasses, and that wins by me. If anything's wearing sunglasses, it wins.
Yeah,
so
they get style points.
They do. Anyway, there's my points.
Right.
Go ahead, guys.
In terms of favorite enemies, this kind of goes back to what we talked about before. For me, I would probably say it's the basic bitch Magini. Like, not the ones that mutate, not the ones that have like giant ones. I think it was just what encapsulates a lot of the fun in the gameplay is here's your playground and here's infinite basic dudes, and like these ones have crossbows, these ones have axes, these ones throw bottles, these ones can only grab you. I think for me that was my favorite, just dealing with a swarm, I think, is a fun time, and seeing them like jump and crawl and all sorts of things. And the occasional big one's good, but I just loved going against swarms of basic enemies.
I mean, they give you most variety, so that does.
Yeah.
So. All right, I'm actually going to read this one off. Number 5, who is your favorite and least favorite boss in the game? And I actually want to start first on this one. My favorite, though, by far, is definitely Wesker.
Yeah.
Capcom went above and beyond with this fight. So I love rival fights in my game, so this is definitely a bias towards that, though. But what I love is how you can approach him. Either you could take the stealth route, or you could take the forceful route by either countering him, doing your quick time events, whatever. But I prefer stealth though, because I was gonna easier, especially with the Magnum. But there's one detail that I really, really do like that I never knew about this until literally this year. If you can knock off his shades, right, and with that you can actually blind him with flashbangs afterwards. Never knew that. I wish I knew that years ago though, when I was not that good at the game though. But now I don't need it though. But it's a nice little detail where you can approach that one fight at least 3 different ways to a certain degree, or 4 if you count the later versions. Use a rocket launcher, shoot him up, and then go grab him. So yeah, Wesker easily number 1. Least favorite though is the gun turret session with that giant Magini from Resident Evil 4. That fight just sucks, honestly, because you don't even fight him directly. You just on the turret all the time. I don't like it. Trash. Sorry, I don't like that chapter either.
Yeah, I get that.
All right, next person.
Yeah, as I'd said, Wesker 100%. He's a lot of fun to fight. He can be kind of cruel a little bit, especially if you're fighting him later on professional. And particular note, the Jill Wesker fight on professional is not particularly fun to fight. It can be a real hassle trying to separate him. But I think all in all, he's pretty fun, and he says some completely inane madness, which is always good times in a Resident Evil game. And if you do want to actually take the fight to him, you actually have to employ some strategy of having to distract him and get your partner to kind of go around and blindside him. There's a lot of cool stuff, I mean, you can fire a rocket at him and he's physically holding it back, which is also extra style points there. I think they did a really good job with Wesker and pretty much all the fights. The final fights, sure, it's a final fight. It's going to be a bit mad. Sure, it was okay. But I think fighting him just beforehand, though, was really, really good times.
That's actually something I was going to bring up. If they're being said in the Discord, what's everyone's favorite fight? It's probably going to be Wesker. And I would agree, having to have that strategy and stealth, I think, is really fun. Except when it was, okay, so what's your least favorite fight? Also Wesker, specifically when he was with Jill, because I died so many times, not because of me, but because they'd be like, you know what? Chris is running around, he's being smart and playing Metal Gear Solid. I'm just going to go beat the shit out of Shiva now. And it did feel awful to be like, I cannot save you other than to call you to me. And then having to go up against Jill, who would just be like, I can't shoot you, Chris. Your muscles are too big. Oh, look, hi, Shiva. And then the fight would end. But the strategy and tactfulness you had to approach, what is effectively a superhuman, I think was an absolute blast. Not as much, okay, the hype factor when he was mutating and when he absorbed a plane, but it was hype, it was cool, I was all for it. But I think just basic Wesker would probably be the best kind of fight, the most fun.
Completely agree. I mean, base Wesker is really, really fun. I mean, can we all agree that during the middle of the fight, remember that 2-on-2 fight, right?
Yeah.
All his quotes were really funny.
Yeah.
I mean,
Some of them were bone chilling, especially when you didn't know where he was. I found you, and you'd be like, oh,
exactly. And you know what? I remember there was a moment I was on one side of the hallway, right? And here I am just I could just shoot you. And I completely forgot that this guy could blitz towards you instantaneously. And that freaked me out. But yeah, I mean,
I love that when he sprints.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it was a great base. Wesker was fun and it was a great fight. And I do agree with what you guys said. I think his final fight was kind of lackluster. I mean, me personally, I thought he was a lot more powerful in his base form and compared to his Ouroboros absorbed form, So
yeah, he was calm and collected, and actually using what he had against you versus going full monster. That's a recurring theme with Resident Evil. Their enemies were stronger when it not transformed.
But we got to put it into context. So remember, like Wesker did get injected. Remember? With,
Yeah.
yeah.
That it was
like,
like
it was medicine
overwhelming
twice.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, I think he had an excuse, to be fair.
Yeah, I
But
think
then
that-
again, though,
Yeah.
still, he punched a hole through the plane, which is like made of steel, right? Like he was
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
more powerful that way than he was with the Ouroboros. So, like, honestly, he kind of downgraded himself still.
I
That's
forget
so-
what the name of the trope is, but like, you know, when it's Spider-Man versus one villain, that one villain's ready to like destroy the city, right? And then it's Spider-Man versus 6 villains, and somehow all of their competency has gone down to be the
Yes.
worth of one. It was that kind of a
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's like less is more with Wesker then.
Yeah,
I mean, I love, like, you know, there's giant monsters and they shoot acid or whatever, and they're mutating crazy, and then you just have a dude in a trench coat walking towards you, and you're like, oh, this can't be that. Oh. It was
Yeah,
so much more
it's-
scary, I
It's
think.
very bad. It's very
It
bad.
was a pretty slick trench coat too.
Oh, he was styling as all get out. I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice getting pummeled by Neo from the Matrix. You know, I mean, it's nice.
yeah.
Oh, the first time the light went through the sunglasses and you see like the demon, dragon, snake, whatever you want to call them eyes, that was
Yeah.
horrifying, and I
Yeah,
loved it.
especially if you hadn't played Code Veronica and didn't already know about it. Because if
Oh,
you
it freaked me
had,
out then too. Yeah.
especially if you hadn't played that and weren't aware that was the situation, you're actually like, oh, that's not good.
Like, oh, he's a dude. Oh, he's Satan. Oh.
Okay, so I wanna do mine real quick. So it's not gonna take too long, but basic Wesker, as everyone has said, with how dynamic the combat is, the stuff he could do, sprinting towards you like Usain Bolt, that stuff was incredible. I thought that was great, and I know some people will say the second fight is kind of dumb because he has sunglasses on, and you turn off the lights, and then turns around. Why not take the sunglasses off so you can see? But I mean, as pure boss mechanics go, and him catching the missiles and everything, I thought it was really well done. It's not very common, even in Resident Evil, where you fight someone that is a humanoid that is your size, but instead he has superhuman abilities. So I thought that was very clever the way they did it. As for least favorite boss fights, I will have to say it is Nadetsu, which is the giant El Gigante monster. It's on rails, so that's one thing kind of against it. And then you have to sort of not only deal with him, but you have to deal with the other Magini, either shooting arrows or throwing Molotov cocktails at you at the same time. And then on professional, it gets even more annoying, so you have to watch out for them and not get hit, because a combination of all three will just kill you immediately.
Yeah, I really didn't want to use Ndezu as my pick for worst, because I think the fact that it's on rails is like a little unfair, because it's the only one that's like that, and it kind of plays against it. But then I was thinking of all the other boss fights in the game, and there's not really any that I'd say I particularly dislike. I think they're all at least fine. And especially the first time you fight them, I think they're all pretty decent. The Ouroboros first fight is like it's fine as an introduction. The one later on with the flamethrower, I think is kind of well constructed if difficult. The fight on the ship is obviously completely mad, but isn't actually that terrible, I don't think. So I had to eventually pick that as well, but I felt a little bad in doing so, because the game kind of almost like schemes against itself there. I get the rail idea. I understand why they chose that, but like I just don't think it worked.
Yep, same. I would have preferred a traditional boss fight. I mean, even Irving, all the crazy shenanigans they pull in that fight with him pulling at the boat and everything, that was more well constructed than this turret section here. And you had the option to either use your ammo or get on the turret with Irving, which I thought gave the player a little bit more freedom in the process.
Yeah,
I was
Irving.
just thinking that like Irving is technically on rails as well, but because you have that freedom as opposed to I will die before I leave this Jeep. It's like it adds different aspects to it.
Yeah, Irving I wanted to badly choose, but that was largely just personal experience of having to fight that on vanilla professional, and just misery and pain.
Professional was not fun, but I fight either though. But
Well,
look at the
professional,
bright side.
if you've just got a big massive magnum, it's fine. But if you're doing it
Yeah.
vanilla and you don't, it's a pretty egregious fight.
I can't imagine.
In terms of my favorite and least favorite, obviously, you know, base West. Everybody's said it at this point, and I am agreeing. And I just want to add that, as corny as it was, when the guy stood there and was like, "I have 7 minutes to play with you," I'm like, "Okay, this is cheesy as all hell, but I'm loving every second of it. I'm in for this ride. Let's do this."
Sounds kind of dirty, honestly.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
one
Actually,
Spider-Man 3 minutes, or was it? I forget the exact quote, but it's like 50 seconds of playtime, and you're like, "Oh fuck!"
oh god, oh god.
I forget the exact quote.
Although, to be fair, during last night's stream, he was clipping into every single wall. I don't know if his AI was having a good time last night or not, but for some bizarre reason, and it didn't happen the last time I streamed it, he was clipping into lots of walls, and I had to kite Sheva around as a human distraction to get his attention and then move him off walls.
Yeah, he faces walls now.
Of
The
He
course.
has
wall.
surpassed man and God.
Yes. He now just loves walls.
Yep.
All things wall, which is perfect. Although I still haven't managed to get the Heart of Africa. I will get that eventually, I swear.
It's a pain
It's
in the
happening.
ass. It's a pain
I've
in
heard
the
it's
ass.
very hard. Even some of my stream guys were saying that last night.
You
So-
got to just commit to it, or just bring a rocket launcher of you, and then you can probably get it. But if
Yeah,
you
what-
want to just use the resources that are around, it's pretty tough.
One of the guys literally said that to me. They're like, "Silver, just grab a rocket launcher."
Yeah, it's
So-
the easiest way to do it if you rocket launcher. It's not enough on professional. Like if you just use that, I'm pretty sure you still have to do a little damage on top. I think my memory's a little bit off, but like outside of rocket launchering, it's pretty hard to defeat him in time. We tried in the base handgun run. Like we legitimately tried to see if we could beat Wesker in 7 minutes with Jill around, and we got pretty close a couple of times, but never quite managed it.
Yeah. And if we were to say least favorite, I'm going to buck the trend here. I don't remember its BOW name. I am simply going to call it the Bat Bastard.
Oh, the first one.
Yes.
Oh, I'm curious about this one. What makes
Yes.
that one, Yuli's favorite?
The Popo Karimu.
Popo Karimu, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
That dude was a big puppy. I loved him. He was so cute.
To me, he was easy.
Oh,
He was
oh.
super easy.
I just like how he followed you around.
I always had trouble getting around the side of him and trying to
Oh,
land the damage on his underbelly. And I'd get killed several times. I really did struggle. And it's same in this playthrough as well that I've just done. Struggle each time.
Yeah, landmines are your best friend.
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't realize that until like my last attempt of this playthrough. So for 10 years, I have been doing that boss fight wrong, guys.
Yeah,
That just
there's a
means
reason-
you're doing it the superior way. You're that much better for it.
The Giga Chad way.
Okay.
The Giga Chad
Yeah.
way.
that.
Thank you, gents. Thank you. But yeah, those are my picks. Carry on. Go ahead.
I guess we can move on to the next question.
Move on.
Yep.
Yes. Silver, you want to read that one off?
Yeah, sure.
Number
Give
6.
me 1 second to scroll down. Right. What was your favorite and least favorite chapter within RE5?
Least favorite though, I already said it. The gun turret. That's easy. I hate that chapter. Fuck it.
Yeah,
but-
this goes
I'm-
into the boss thing again. Like
my
I
hack
don't
does
want
the
I don't
same
want to
thing.
choose it because you're stuck on rails. I really don't want to pick it.
I mean, it takes away the so obviously any turret section is going to be somewhat unrealistic because this Jeep does not have infinite ammo, but that really just took me out of it. It's like, oh, I'm no longer playing this on my computer. I'm playing this in an arcade in Japan. Oh, lovely. I just despise that chapter compared to all the other ones, at least.
But
You know-
favorite though, that's honestly a hard one.
You know,
Something like that.
me personally, I didn't like the chapters, chapter 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3. Because first of all, I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just my preference, but I could care less about the setting in that area. But also, I never really cared about Ricardo Irving that much, and the whole Rails thing. So, I mean,
You talking
It's
about
tough.
the village? The water
yeah,
village.
the swamp kind of like where you also the alligators and all that. Yeah, I mean, I never really cared for it too much. I mean, but it's not to say that I mean, compared to the whole game, I mean, it's okay, but just least out of everything, yeah, just chapter 3 in general, I didn't enjoy it. And like I said, I didn't really care for Ricardo Irving that much. So
Understandable.
I might have to agree. The hunt for Irving just, it didn't feel as compelling to me because it's like the most you know is he's an arms dealer. He's in cahoots with Tricell. After that, after you find that whole chapter, his motivation is just lacking. It just seems like he's just your signature lackey, and he wants to inject a virus into himself to stop Chris and Sheva, and they could have did a lot more with that character. So I guess story wise, that's where it sort of slows down a lot. It doesn't pick up again. Like, he's goofy, sure. The fireworks line is so fucking funny, but I feel as though story wise it doesn't really pick up until you start to get that revelation that Jill's like still alive, and then afterwards you go to the Wesker stuff. Like, the back half of the game is where the most interesting stuff sort of occurs, I would say, and it has the most interesting set pieces. But the beginning outside of the village and when you start to go after Irving, it's a little bit boring. So I would say that's like my least favorite part of the game, and the mines are a little bit annoying. But after that, I say after chapter 3 is where things start to get really intense, and I really like, I think my favorites are like chapter 5, because it really starts to throw everything at you. You got to really know the mechanics of the game, and you really get the best upgrades in the Magnum from there once you are in the Wesker chapter. So that's what I really like, that Lightning Hawk.
You know what? To add to this though, like, if I had to bar out that particular chapter that all of us don't like though, I would say the refinery was probably my least favorite, because it ironically it goes by a little too fast that you couldn't even enjoy it. Plus, some of the air set pieces there kind of feel a little weird that you had to drive through under all these pipes or whatever. Could you take another direction, you know? I felt like that location just built weird, you know. So I don't care for much for that spot.
Mine's probably slightly out there, I guess, but I actually think chapter 1-1, I personally is one of my favorites of the game. And it's just purely, it's just purely, I mean, the actual start of it's like, it's okay, it's fine. It's purely for the standoff at the village. To me, it's just got a bit of everything. You have your cinematics of obviously everything that's going on. You've got the craziness of seeing the executioner and all that stuff, and then you've got the actual standoff itself, which is pretty chaotic, but it's not overwhelmingly unfair unless you're playing professional, in which case it's absolutely disgustingly brutal. But I think it's a fantastic opening to the game, all things being equal. Even though you have to play just a little bit just to kind of get there. Once you get to the actual standoff at the end of chapter 1-1, I think it's a fantastic section. I don't really see as far as what Resident Evil, what they were going for is concerned, like that, to me, that's it in a nutshell, surely.
I agree with that. Like, okay, so this is something I'm biased on when it comes to Resident Evil. I think smaller scale is better, and I get we talked about Resident Evil 5, like, you know, the scale is huge, but just being in that one town in the beginning and being like, oh, there's zombies, oh god, and like that first initial, all you have is a pistol and a knife. I think it's a really fun segment. Yeah. So when you do get to there's execution, there's a chainsaw guy, you know, objectively we could be like, well, that's not the biggest upgrade in the world, but in the moment you're like, oh god, oh.
Yeah, because you're still in the part of the game where you're not well equipped. You don't have enough ammunition. Like, you can't fight everything. It's just not possible. You're not in a position of everything, so you kind of have to, like, you if you know what you're doing, you can. But especially the first time you played the game, like, you're basically in survival mode and just running around this village like chaotically, with no real idea of what you're trying to do, and you're just desperately trying to hold off everything that's going on, which ironically is about as old school Resident Evil as you get in the entire game.
Yeah, I was gonna say
later you have enough different kinds of guns where if you're put back in there, you just be like, blam, done. All right, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. But you haven't got to that point first, so it still retains that initial impact to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say this that section of tension when it comes to like New Game Plus users, that's when people just start turning around, and that whole fleet of Magini that you couldn't kill earlier, they just start punching them. I'm like, there's a slight exception to that rule.
Yeah, I did a little bit of New Game Plus because I couldn't find where to like make a brand new save file, so I was like, well, I guess I just got all this gear and I should have just banked all of it. Oh well. And I just went in and like when you have a pistol that's fully upgraded that holds however many bagillion rounds, it's like this isn't quite as threatening as it was last time I played.
No, it's not. But I think it's a bit unfair to judge some of these chapters on New Game Plus.
Of course.
You have these crazy. I think you have to put a lot more weight into the initial one. And for me, like it just set the scene of what this game was going to be. You'd had your little tension, your bit of plot, your little intrigue of what was going on, and then you find this massive horde of people. They've just executed someone right in front of you, and now they're all coming for you. And you're like, well, this is probably not going to end well.
I'm actually going to partially disagree with you, Shadow, on something though. I think New Game Plus should also take into account how you enjoy a chapter as well, because you can approach it differently because you experienced it before, and you come better equipped, right? So like chapter 1, for example, right? Sure, the first time around you can handle a lot of situations though, but second time around though, I feel more confident and prepared to handle all situations at hand. So I can just go in, bang, 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 and call it a day, right? I do like that, just going in and shooting up the whole chapter. It's just honestly fun.
I'm not saying that it shouldn't count at all. I think there should be more put in the first one. But even for that section, when you go bit to it later on and you have this super weaponry and you're much more ready for an actual fight, it changes the context of it. Because now, first time you were just running around chaotically, now you can actually fight back at them, and it has that a bit of originality to them, which is still dangerous because there's still a lot of dudes and there's still the executioner, and he will beat your ass if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm like, welcome to my
initial. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say welcome to my infinite RPG, but it does change the context, so I do agree with that.
Whereas everything else, like the first time you approach it, you're already in all guns blazing mode and trying to kill everything. So there's nothing new to be had the second time when you're even more well equipped to fight it. The first one, at least, it's different because you couldn't fight it properly in the first place.
Right. Initial realization versus a power trip and coming in with a proper briefing and equipment.
Exactly, yeah.
Is it possible to defeat the executioner on a fresh new game without expending a significant amount of time and ammunition?
Yes, you can use the environments to your advantage with that.
Yeah,
so yes,
there are tricks to it. You can beat him. Like there's plenty of barrels. If you're playing with a person, you can get some co-op like melee chains on him. You can do a decent amount of damage, but it is still pretty. It's not easy at the best of times, and of course, you're not fighting him in isolation. You've got like 8 to 10 other Magini that are trying to kill you at the same time, and they're the real issue. And he just like
consistently as well.
Yeah, and he's not so dangerous on himself. It's the fact that they'll mob you and they'll like get hold of you, and then he'll come in and do the damage. That's the issue.
Well, there's also speaking from experience. So I was able to do it the first time when I started a new game on like a different platform. But there's also the SMG there as well, which can rack up stopping power. So you can always use that as well to take out the little guys. Use your pistol for since it has more stopping power on the big guy. Use the environments and go in and kill him. Once you get the flow down on how the chapter works, so you can actually kill him and also deal with all the enemies. It just comes down with experience at the end of the day for that.
As opposed to the panic of the mob coming at you and you just throwing everything, just trying to survive,
which is not unreasonable.
I was curious because I haven't actually beaten the executioner probably more than twice, I'd say. So I just wanted to gauge a few other people's opinions on if it's doable.
It's doable, but it's probably not worth the effort. Is the problem?
Honestly, if you want that early money, I'll say try. But again, if it's your first time playing it, don't struggle. Don't even try it.
Yeah, it's
not confident.
It's not worth it. And to be honest, like you get a half decent amount of cash out of it, but you're kind of semi-ish crippling your immediate future anyways, and it's just like
The ring he drops is worth about like $5,000, right?
Yeah, at the time,
$5,000 could get you another weapon.
Yeah, $5,000 is not bad at the time, but it's not highly worth it, I don't think.
And just adding in here, my favorite chapter, I'm going to be well out of the scope of answers we've had so far. I like the chapter when you're going fresh into the marshlands and you have to get the 3 different plates from the 3 different areas that then leads into the village. I liked how you were going around on the little hovercraft, and one part has alligators in it. Another is like a little raised up section, and another bit is like in a little area of the village with a few little chickens running around. And then the bit where you actually go into the central village area proper, and you have that big wave fight, just like full of Magini and the two big tribal dudes with the
Yeah, the
massive.
ambush.
Yep. I enjoyed that more than 4's village section. I really do enjoy that bit quite a lot. So
Yeah,
thought
I
it was
know,
really good.
honestly, I'm gonna reach on that one because it honestly gives off a different mood there, right? Everything's so quiet until it actually happens. But like, I enjoy it though. Like, just going cruising down the stream, then you got guys with flaming arrows starting to shoot at you. Like, it has a different mood from the whole game before and afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I also kind of like the tragic backstory of the villagers in this section, where you find out that they were just an isolated tribe until you see that they are all infected. And I thought that was kind of eerie at first, where it's like their skin is all blue and their face is just all like sort of contorted and everything, and then Sheva remarks on the tribe and how they were lost to the virus. So you kind of get an idea of Ouroboros affecting the landscape when you get to this portion of the game.
Like nature itself is going downhill as opposed to just the urban areas. I definitely can get that.
Yep.
If you read the diary in the village as well, what Tricell does to those poor people is really quite dreadful. They persuade them that it's pretty much a vaccine to help, to help them fight against illness, when they're literally putting the virus into them and treating them as guinea pigs, and it's an awful thing to take advantage of people like that. So
It's
I
quite
mean, if they're
old school.
isolated, no one's really talking to them. They don't want to talk to anyone else. Who's gonna notice when they all turn into horrible man-eating monsters?
Yeah, it's quite an old school blast of Resident Evil, actually. Some of those documents.
yeah, it is. Have we talked about least favorites yet?
Is right? Chapters? Yeah, we kind of did.
A little bit.
Yeah, I'll just add mine in because it's going to be very, very much out there, so I might as well. The last chapter, where you're
You
going
don't like things shooting at you left and right.
Specifically, the bit where you're going through the ship. You've got the Reapers and the two Minigunners. It's hell for me every time, and I just don't find a great deal of satisfaction in being mobbed from all sides by guns and explodey things and giant cockroaches with like death scythe hands, and it did not work for me.
I do remember by the end of that, not so much a feeling of like, I did it, but just like I wanted to curl up in a ball, like mostly beaten to death. Like, okay, I made it. Now what?
Yeah, you got war scars now. Like, oh my god, I'm actually
A little
out
bit
finally.
PTSD, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could agree. Like, I like the chaos of it. Like, whereas, like, say 6-1, and initially when you're kind of just cruise, obviously the idea is you're trying to infiltrate the Tricell ship, but to me that was a little bit plodding.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of to each their own.
That, and it was just the factor of Sheva's AI. I'm going to add that in here. Sheva's AI made it an exercise in misery. And I had a bunch of people in my chat winding me up about it, saying Sheva's AI is the true enemy. I'm like, thank you guys, thank you.
I honestly didn't have as much problems with her. Like, I think the biggest sin she ever committed was I picked up a red herb and then I saw like, oh, she picked up a green one. Good, she can give it to me, and then she just uses it immediately as I have the red herb in my hand. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? But otherwise, I honestly think Sheva did okay, real quick. Is it Shiva or Sheva?
It's Sheva.
Sheva.
It's checking. All right. Like, honestly thought Sheva was a pretty good, obviously a person would always be better, but in terms of just an AI, I think she was a pretty damn good companion.
But
I definitely get when she gets annoying though.
Before we move on, though, I want to say this though. I feel like the hate on Sheva is honestly so misplaced because it's the AI, not the character, fault for it.
Yeah, Chris can also
great.
Yeah, Chris can also be pretty dumb as well in sections. He'll do the same shit. So, yeah,
exactly. It's just the AI though, but people unfortunately, like the freaking brain cells to freaking realize that it's the AI.
Yeah, it's not the character; it's the AI.
Yeah.
That being said,
let's move on.
Yeah, that being said, just real quick on the AI, I mean, sometimes I don't have a problem with it, and other times I do. I just simply use her as a pack mule for certain things. Obviously, she's gonna go around and pick up everything anyway, but when it comes to health items, I'm like, okay, give me that now, because I know the first thing that's gonna happen is you are going to use it, and I am going to be in big shit if you use all my health items. So I take those, and then I just give her ammo, and then as support, she's going to run around and try to use all that up, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm good, because either I have an infinite weapon or I have enough ammo to deal with this situation. So that's kind of how I treat it. Once you treat her as a pack mule and you try to take the health items away from her just randomly using it, then it gets a little bit easier that way.
You know, Capcom should have. No, Capcom should have done though. It should have the option to customize your AI to be either aggressive, defensive, supportive, or balanced. That would remedy a lot of issues, potential issues, with AI using up healing items or using up all the ammo, wherever the lingo people like to use for the AI. That would at least help, damper that kind of stuff. It just gives us options to, stabilize the AI to whatever path you want.
Like a Fallout style, like stay close to me, stay away from me, use range, use like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, essentially.
I will say from personal experience, giving Sheva either like the MP5 or later on the assault rifle and just having her on attack mode, like I actually found she was not that bad at all. In fighting, she was like pretty serviceable. I will throw in, especially the assault with the assault rifle later on. You give her a ton of ammo and just say go have a party. Like, the one thing AI can do is they can shoot shit from a long way away and be pretty accurate at it. So you got to play into their strength.
Oh yeah, the best weapons to give her give AI would definitely be the sniper, the Magnum, because range on both weapons, the shotgun, or the SMG or
assault rifle for me was the way to go for her. I always found she was actually pretty effective with that. So
giving her the one taser wand or whatever the thing's called too, like surprisingly effective.
Yeah, she just gets stuck in. She's just like, my life doesn't matter. Let's just have a crack at them. And yeah, it's like she wasn't that bad.
Time for that segue into 7. Also, go ahead.
Yeah, because
we are talking about weapons.
One consistent thing I did notice, and this will inadvertently tie into weapons a tiny bit, with something Ren just said there, attack and support wasn't enough. I noticed attack was fine. Every time I had her on support, she would literally crouch just behind my back and shoot into my back as opposed to shooting the enemies in front of me. She did that a lot.
To make you bullet resistant. Blah blah blah.
I had the opposite effect. On attack, she just ran around and wasted everything, but she strayed too far. And I think during the section where Chris is on the boat and you're supposed to get off and activate these panels where Josh says another pipe, get down. She ran way too far away. The turret guy got her, and then I had to run and save her butt. So there are times where it is efficient, and then there are times where it really is not.
I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that.
I'm pretty sure Josh spelled another ANOD. I'm pretty sure he said it with a D in there. He wasn't saying another. No, nothing against him. It's just the way he said it. Always made me laugh. He was adorable. Josh is like one of my favorite characters in the Resident Evil series. He's great entertainment, but the way he said some stuff in the game was hilarious.
Another pipe, get down.
So that is another pipe.
Yeah.
So
great.
All right, let me read this off real quick. Let's talk about weapons and arsenal. Do you think Resident Evil 5 handled this well or poorly, especially with the real-time inventory system? So honestly, I feel like Resident Evil 5, along with 4, handled the weapons probably the best in the series, because they're like all weapons to a certain degree. Because there's always going to be a hierarchy with weapons. No, that's going to happen. But I feel like they handled all the weapons pretty well. Like all weapons have some form of use for after a while, especially with the special upgrades you get them, like whether it be critical, piercing, ammo capacity, you name it. Each weapon will have something that will fit tailor your playstyle, barring some of the obvious weaker weapons in contrast to the other weapons.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. Something that really. So when I initially started playing, I was like, oh god, all these weapons and ammo, and I was like having issues trying to figure them out. But when I hit 2 realizations of first, like, weapons of one type should go to Sheva, and weapons of one type should go to me. So that way, whenever we get ammo, I know who to give it to. And then on upgrades, focusing on ammo capacity to help free up more space for more ammo and stuff. I think that really helped me like get used to every single weapon, how to use it, because I had the room to work and play with them, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I having played Resident Evil 4 beforehand, it's another one of the ones. There wasn't a lot of change to it. It was the same sort of general idea, but I never had any issues with the fighting or any of the weapons in the game. They all sort of felt impactful enough. They all did their own jobs. There was little niches for some of them here and there. The grenade launcher obviously got expanded with all these various different ammo types, which I thought was a little, maybe a touch unnecessary, but I had nothing against it. Yeah, I always thought it was.
It's great until you run out of space, and then it's annoying.
Yeah, like I'm glad they did too, though. But it is an ammo hog. No, it was something that I'm sort of glad they kind of rectified in Resident Evil 3 remake, though. But at the same time, it's still an ammo hog. But yeah, more space. But besides the point, though, like I like that you can like cycle out different types of ammos, whatever, without having to use like a physical grenade. But the problem is that you will run out of space really quickly if you don't have a pretty well upgraded weapon that can hold a lot of ammo inside this magazine. So that can get a little annoying.
Yeah, I suppose. But other than that, like I think it's a minor thing in the grand scheme of it.
I think in terms of sheer scope and variety of weapons, this game absolutely knocks it out of the ballpark. It's definitely got, at least from my observation, one of the most diverse array of weapons across the board compared to every other game. And it's like was said just a moment ago, they are indeed situational. They can be tailored to any situation whatsoever. I just had one gripe with the slightly lacking inventory space compared to obviously say 4. I didn't like every single grenade taking up an individual slot, because I'm one of those people that always uses a grenade to get out of a situation. It's habitual in my more action-orientated Resident Evil playthroughs. So to have the slightly more limited options by proxy, the way the ammo system and the that kind of thing works, that was my downside. But I feel like in terms of what they offer you and with sheer quantity of weapons, you can always find something to adapt your play style to. So that's just my take on it anyway. Anybody feel similarly?
No, I think you're honestly spot on for it though, because they do give you way too little inventory space, even if it's between two people though. If you're playing with a second player though, like they have their own inventory space, so you can take advantage of that. Because it's their spot, right? Whereas if you play the AI, you can do what you want with it. Honestly, what they should have really done is love the option to at least expand the inventory slot, or at least don't let grenades, for example, take up a blanket spot. Let it have its own unique little corner where you could store grenades in and throw it as a throwable,
Yeah.
It got worse when you decided to the armor that takes up inventory slots as well. That just exacerbated the problem even more. And all I could do was sit there and say, I just want my guy in the hoodie with the "what you buying?" Just give me a briefcase, give me just a few more inventory slots, and life would have been so much better.
Yeah,
that's definitely
18 slots between two characters. It's not a lot in the grand scope of things. It
sounds
really
like
not
a lot at first, but then you're like, oh, each person needs a gun, each person needs backup ammo, each person needs health, and then it's all gone before you know it.
Yeah, those key components will take up slots quickly, which only leaves you probably around 2, maybe 1, slot available for something else like a free space. But even then, still, you really gotta be careful how you punt around.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess we'll move on to number 8, and if we got any more statements for 7.
Just real quick, I want to say that God, I love the stun rod so much in the Hydra. Just such great weapons to use all around, in my opinion. Obviously there are some guns that I'm not too fond of. I think that the big box Gatling gun can be a little bit annoying because it blocks half the screen, but I feel as though the weapons in this game were done relatively well. It's a little bit challenging when you get into mid game, but once you start like getting more items and treasures and upgrading as you go along. I thought they were really well done compared to RE4. I think both games really did a good job at upgrading and managing weapons and how they're used efficiently.
Oh,
Yeah,
Red,
I feel like I was gonna say I feel like I probably officially owe the Stun Rod an apology for thinking it was complete trash for about 15 years or
Dude,
so.
it's so good.
And then in the base handgun run, we allowed using stun rods, and I was like, "Ooh, this actually isn't too bad."
all right. I would say this though for the Gatling gun. Like, sure, it just block a good chunk of your screen if you have bad FOV, but it protects your back and it's infinite ammo. So like, I can at least forgive that one cent for those other two great attributes.
True, I just wish it was like, Heavy Metal Chris, where they kind of fixed it in a way, where it's like he slouched over and it's easier to see.
Right.
Still a cool gun overall and everything else, but we can move on.
I wanted to add this though, since you mentioned your favorite weapon, right? What is your favorite weapon or weapons in Resident Evil 5?
Damn.
Hydra is definitely on that
Hydra
list.
is a good shout. Like, it is hard to say the Hydra. The Hydra, it's just as pure gameplay is like unbelievably great.
Pure testosterone inducing when you use it with Chris and Wesker.
Yeah, just one-handed is like it's hard not to be impressed with that.
That gun is
I'm
amazing.
biased, and I'll say the sniper rifle and just the assault rifle. I love turning
which
into
one?
a point at any of them. Honestly, like I'm pretty simple that
The-
way.
The
But the ability
DS75
to turn the game into a point-and-click adventure, just be like, tuk, 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 tuk. Okay, they're all dead. Let's move on.
Yeah,
It's always felt
Warfare.
great.
yeah. PSG one for me. I just kill with that thing, and I love the auto fire as well, as opposed to the bolt action. So I would say that gun as well.
And
yeah,
that's also an example of like gun hierarchy. Like, there's no point using the bolt action when the PSG can literally do the same thing, pop heads free,
and
and
faster.
it has a magazine. Yeah, so like no point using the bolt action.
yeah, but you don't go hunting with like a freaking PSG one. You go hunting with an S75.
Oh, man.
You bet.
Style, it's style,
Snake, you found
When
a
they
PSG.
die, I want them to know that I could have had a better weapon, and I went down to their level just to mess with them.
I mean, I will say it's definitely not like any of the shotguns. I honestly don't think the shotguns were actually that great in Resident Evil 5, which is a shame because in Resident Evil 4, I think they were pretty good. But
I mean, if nothing
think-
else, they make a great get off me button. Of
that
just,
was
like,
about it.
give me some
yeah.
room, and then you move and do
Like,
whatever.
like the M3 was fine. Obviously, we took the Hydra, it's amazing, but the Hydra you didn't really see. Like, he was mainly a mercenary weapon. But as far as general campaign, the M3 was like okay. But other than that, I didn't really like any of the shotguns, to be honest.
Okay, hold on. There's actually one gun in particular that stands out for. I think it actually might be the M3 because of its headshot.
Yeah, the
capability.
M3 is probably, when it's fully upgraded, is pretty good. But other than that, it's like,
Yeah, you might have a point though. Shotguns are definitely a downgrade though, but mine's a Hydra because that weapon is just busted.
I didn't use many of the shotguns myself, but one thing that saw consistent usage throughout and has done in successive playthroughs for me is the MP5 submachine gun you get fairly early on.
Mhm.
Once that thing is quite heavily upgraded, what I tend to do with it is stockpile as much ammo as possible, make sure it's nice and well upgraded, lots of piercing on it, and it becomes an effective room sweeper when tied in with a lot of
Just pure crowd control of like, all right, we're gonna get them all in one hallway. Let's go.
tie in some melee attacks for the stragglers, give people the old Chris Redfield right hook, clear the room. Feels very good. It does feel satisfying.
Feels good, man.
Indeed.
Well, I guess we can move on then. Duff, you still here? Getting kind of quiet.
Oh yeah, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Just making sure. You want to read up number 8?
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the main lore and arc that Chris Redfield goes through in Resident Evil 5, with the reappearance of Wesker, Tricell, Spencer's death, and the plan to saturate the world, right? How do you think it was all handled? This includes talk about the new characters as well.
Is that well,
This is actually a huge, wow, quite a lot in one question. I'll pick one specific portion of this question. I'll let you guys go through it. But what my favorite thing about this whole question is the fact that we got to see Spencer, right? I mean, I think this was the first and only time where we actually got to see him, right? And the whole series. Besides the Lost of Nightmares, but yeah, like I like the fact that we finally got to see Spencer. I mean, the big baddie who was one of the founders of Umbrella, and we got to see from his butler's point of view, like the diary, and see like kind of almost like his last days before he died from Wesker's hands, literally, you know. So, anybody else want to take a crack at this?
Yeah, no, I would say
Sure.
I agree. I think the Spencer stuff is very interesting. It's a cool insight into like the backstory of Umbrella, and there's a lot of kind of we've known Umbrella to be this whole kind of I wouldn't say omnipotent force, but obviously it's been a major storyline device, ever present throughout the entire series. So it's nice that in a game that's like what nearly 15 years after the first one came out, they're still managing to add in these little extra details in the background. And Spencer, who, if you've read the files and you're aware of the game and the story, you kind of already you sort of ish know about him, but don't know much. Yeah, it's very, very cool.
So to bring up, sorry.
Yeah, no, go.
To bring up a lore question, you know, this is something because I'll admit I don't have the best understanding with it. So Spencer is one of the people who started Umbrella, right? But it was basically his goal to like, I'm going to design the ultimate life form and become it so that I can surpass God and we will be the next stage of evolution. And you know, Albert, my good old boy that probably was abused, he's doing real good at this. So all the other people who start up Umbrella, were they just like, he has his God complex in the corner, I'm just gonna focus on making money, and oops, I just hit Africa?
Well, no, he was.
That was what they always wondered about.
He was slowly eliminating the other guys that were involved in Umbrella. So
right,
that was just like.
Yeah,
just imagine you need like one other chair on that board meeting. Like, okay, so Mr. God Complex is here, and there used to be 10 of us, and now there's 4.
Yeah, it's a little complicated. It's been further, I guess, I wouldn't say muddied, but it has been added to further with Resident Evil Village, which goes even further back into Oswald Spencer. And how he met like James Marcus and stuff like that. The Ashfords and his original meetings with them, and before Umbrella even existed. I think it was founded. Forget when it was meant to be founded, like in the mid 60s, I think.
1960s.
60s, something like that.
64. I'm sure it's 64.
60 something anyway. So it you know, and it's kind of interesting, and obviously it's the typical Umbrella, obviously the power plays and people trying to manipulate everyone else and trying to like take sole possession, the sort of thing. But yeah, you had to introduce him somewhere, and I think Resident Evil 5 was a good shout, you know, of this man who's obviously he's as crazy as all the rest of them, but is unfortunately bound by his own mortality, much to his own disgust, and he's done all these crazy and disgusting and, you know, horrendous things to try and get past it. But you're seeing a man who openly has lost his fight before really losing his fight.
What greater motivator is there to discover immortality than oncoming death? It's a bit of a trope, but it's a real one that actually happens. So
yeah,
it's not like too far out there.
Once he was betrayed by Alex Wesker, I don't think there was anything else he could do. His one shot for immortality was just gone out the window.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, actually, in the Butler's diary, right? Like you said, once Alex Wesker's betrayal, like the last resort he had was to locate Albert Wesker, right? And that's where the Butler found him.
Much, yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean that was a huge mistake on his part. And going back to, I mean, like, yeah, he was one of the 3 founders, but I think they all had a kind of like a similar vision. They all wanted like a eugenics kind of like world, right? Best human race, whatever, but they went about it in their own separate ways, and then, you know, their own plot lines. Eventually one got jealous of the other, somebody's getting more power, and took each other out, or tried to at least, and then in the end it was just Spencer by himself. So I thought that was a great, I mean, this background lore of the Umbrella Corporation founders and seeing this in RE5, I really liked it. I really did.
Yeah, the great thing is, well, especially with Umbrella, is for its omnipresence has been throughout the series. It's always been very vague as to how it exactly exists in its actual history. So you've always been able to just add in little bits of information here and there as the plot demands and sees fit, and it never really kind of like interferes with itself because it's this big, massive organization that's got all these crazy links everywhere. So a lot of it, at least in the game's lore, is actually quite believable. So it kind of works to the game's benefit. So yeah, and Spencer was a good way of kind of tying that up and being like the figurehead of it. And he also, of course, really represented like the end of Umbrella as well. You know, obviously he ran it all. And you know, you physically witnessed on screen when Wesker killed him, like, this is Umbrella as you knew it. This is it. It's over. He was the last bastion, and Wesker himself has kind of just wiped it out.
Both figuratively and literally, because in a way, you kind of see that when they are out in, is it Russia, taking down the last Umbrella facility. That would have really been like the last big chance Umbrella had to bounce back from a lore perspective. Say, for example, if they'd have failed or it hadn't have gone as well. But then when you see Marcus, he as an individual is also, in a sense, like a representation of the company. In a sense, a dead, empty shell of something that barely exists anymore, that's on its last legs. No longer,
I mean, also we got to take into account the amount of lore behind, like from the in Resident Evil 5 is that we kind of had like the background of where they found the progenitor virus, right? And how Tricell, Umbrella, and like how the founders, you know, figured out, hey, this is where we could start like the whole T virus thing, right?
Yeah.
And and there was a ton of lore. I read through every single one of them, like in the files, and you even get to explore like a guy named Brandon Bailey. He was like one of the proteges of, I think it was James Marcus, right? And funny enough, he's actually one of the founding members of the Connections, who right now we haven't really explored upon in Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 7. So I think Resident Evil 5 lore-wise had a lot of it. And I mean, it wasn't presented to you up front, but if you really did take your time to read every single file and everything miscellaneous, even outside the games, I love how everything is interconnected within this just one game. And how this area, like in the Indipia tribe area, like this was the start of everything.
Yeah, see, like, that stuff like that is the reason why I say like Resident Evil 5 is like, you know, by lore and by nature is so Resident Evil in contrast to, say, Resident Evil 4, for example. That game is such a disconnect in the lore of things on like 5. You know, it continues on everything that was established in the previous games, on top of adding more stuff and adding more context.
Yep, and you could even argue that this story sets up all the preceding events after this. So I'm talking like Revelations 2, RE6, naturally, stuff like that. This story just leads to more of the bioterrorism shenanigans on the black market, and also it establishes a lot of stuff that was in the past. So we talked about the flowers being the center of everything and the origin of the virus. A lot of people sleep on that. They don't look at that critically, but this place is where the entire series actually started. Them getting this flower.
Second place.
Well, yeah. Them getting this flower, but it's still like super important. Them getting this flower and then, you know, producing all these crazy and wacky monsters that you will come to know, at least in the first game and onward. So I think that is definitely something that cannot be slept on at all. And 4 feels a lot more self-contained, isolated compared to this game in particular, where it's like they're opening the floodgates for the villains, the characters, and all of the lore within the entire series.
Also, too, I feel like, oh, sorry, real quick. I feel like it's also a good closing to that saga that was established since Resident Evil 1. Open up a new, you know, saga for future installments too, like you mentioned.
This is also the end of Chris versus Wesker, the famous rivalry that started at the end of Resident Evil 1.
That and
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say quickly, 5's lore actually has even more importance now because it's even been linked up with current day canon events with 8 or Village pretty much
Mhm.
it's referenced that despite its importance, a lot of the experimentation that came from the progenitor virus ended up after a certain point hitting a brick wall and to some degree was a failure, which then led Marcus to Romania, in where the events of 8 are tied in and everything goes full circle. So that lore element there still holds weight to this day. It's
I
pretty
think, yeah, going to that point, from what I understand, I think Spencer went to the village first and got his ideas from Mother Miranda. And then that's how he got inspired, right? And then he found the virus that would help him become the so-called god that he wanted to be. And also what you guys said about like this was a start, and I'm talking about the flowers of what was called a Stairway to the Sun, right? Is that
Yes.
what it was called? Like the
Yes.
isn't it kind of ironic? Like, I mean, in the end, Wesker, this form of Wesker, like the superhuman Wesker, was pretty much what these Indipia warriors would be when they consumed that flower, if they were selected, right? Or if their DNA matched with the flowers that they were able to consume it. Pretty much Wesker is kind of like the end product and what you would have been able to see, you know? And again, irony here is the fact that Spencer wanted to be this almighty being, but yet his own creation, Wesker, right, Albert Wesker, would be the one to kill him in the end. So I just found that really fascinating. Like I said, the lore, the flowers, the progenitor virus, the steps how these founders, found it, and how they try to cultivate it in their own separate ways. We got Spencer with the Spencer and Marcus with the T virus, and then you got the Ashfords with the T Veronica virus. It's a great lore to really explore if somebody really had the time to try to get into it.
I have a side question, real quick.
What's up?
So the Wesker children, what do you guys think about
Yeah.
that whole arc they established in the files of RE5?
I wish we could see more of it though, because we only
It's
get
interesting
guys
as a
two.
build up to
Yeah.
the two that we see of Alex and Albert, to see like, oh, even if they're failed experiments, it would be interesting to see what were they as failed
Yeah.
experiments.
It
Mhm.
has a payoff. It does. With
It does. I mean, in the end product, I mean, we did see, I mean, it was a success if you really think about it. I mean, Wesker was the success project of that eugenics program. I mean, Spencer wanted the Project W, right? What did he do? He got like a whole bunch of children from above average IQ parents, and they never specified how many, but in the end, they whittled it down as they grew up to like 13 candidates. And then they gave them another experimental progenitor virus strain, and it killed up pretty much all of them except 2. But with Alex Wesker's case, like, biologically she was breaking down because of it.
Yeah.
Unlike, but Wesker actually got an enhancement from it. So that,
Yeah,
I think,
I agree. Like we said, success, like you just mentioned for Wesker's case, it builds him up physically, right? But also, like, in a way for Alex though, it kind of, in a way, also worked against for her because she's able to actually achieve like, immortality, but in a different way, rather than in a way like Wesker, in a way I guess, and Spencer tried to achieve it. Because at the end of Revelations 2, in both endings, she succeeded in transferring her mind into Natalia. So like,
yeah.
she also succeeded in the goal of immortality, just in a different way.
And
Yeah.
you know what? Actually, Spencer did mention that between the two, Alex and Albert, that Alex was the one who they were both smart, like they were both virologists and whatnot, but she knew that Alex was superior intellectual wise compared to Albert, but but obviously the physical part was given to Albert. So they're pretty much like, if
Two sides
Albert
of the same coin, kind of a
correct, like imagine if Albert had the same like intellect as Alex. I mean, you would see probably what, like, God mode Albert Wesker compared to what we saw. I mean, superhuman Wesker.
Yeah,
thing.
that's
Wear 2 trench coats and style on even harder.
That's kind of like a missed opportunity too, in a way, because like, think about it, if those two actually work together, they would cause a hell of a lot more damage than what they did separate.
Yeah. And if anything were to be like, if Albert took Alex's idea, like if something were to happen to his physical body, he would just put his mind into another body, who I assume they would make another superhuman being. like a replica of himself, right?
This is what
So,
people speculated going forward. Like, they said they kind of want the idea of not only the superhuman side, but what will happen if that is combo with the immortality. That would create probably one of the most dangerous metahumans on Earth for Resident Evil. So I hope they tap into that idea, but currently is in limbo, because one thing I would say it's two things actually. Two things I don't like about this storyline is, well, A, it's stuck on a cliffhanger, so we don't know what's going on with like Natalia, and B, they kind of kill most of the other Weskers off. So even still, like, you see the cool Wesker children with Alex and Albert, but they decided to take the opportunity to say, hey, these others didn't make it. And I get it, like, they didn't survive the virus, but they should have left that doorway open to say, hey, it's still like 13 Weskers running rampant out there. What are we gonna do?
Like, mysteriously
this
just
will actually-
appeared, likely dead, and then just leave it at that.
Yeah.
No, this actually be a time for Capcom to do their magical retcon and nonsense like they do with all their games, right? And just say like there's some children that are still alive out there, just they were confirmed dead on paper.
Mhm.
And that would probably be one way for them to like bullshit the way out of saying the other children died.
Yeah, and that'll be also another way, just like the black market thing of continuing the series from there. Everyone could get their hands on the virus. That would be another way to establish different antagonists, because currently I would say Resident Evil's problem now is trying to find that superior big bad that is similar, equal to popularity or build up as Wesker. They had a lot of one-offs in RE6 in particular, but they didn't reach that height or stature of Wesker even in this game. So this is their current problem at the moment, in my opinion.
Well, that's kind of a problem too, though. Like they always making one-offs rather than trying to make a character that can stand the test of time. The only character that's not, well, theoretically not dead, no, is Nikolai, going by the original Resident Evil 3, because apparently he escapes in the canon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Natalia, technically, she's Alex Wesker now. I mean,
Yeah,
hope they
true
explain.
though. But that's also kind of a wait and see in case though, because they still haven't used her again either since 2013 or whatever. So like, yeah, that's also gonna be wait and see.
Kind of going along that same thought process. Like, okay, I understand a big plot point in RE5 is, all right, Wesker says, I will now become as God and be better, and like everyone's gonna die, and only like the true or whatever will continue onwards, right? We talked about this a little bit when the Netflix series Resident Evil trailer came out. I really do wish, okay, Silver made the joke in the Discord, 4 is sadly a filler arc. I kind of like the smaller scale, take someone who is on the black market, buys the weapon legitimately, and decides to use it to do one thing. Specifically, like, it's kind of off in the corner that we kidnapped the president's daughter, but they had one goal and they executed on it. So I think it would be interesting to, instead of apocalyptic world event, just expand on like surgical strikes and like how people respond to it. I recognize that's not necessarily RE5, but that's something I do wish to see more of, as opposed to like the world ending every single time. But that's me biased because I like smaller scale, because I think it creates higher stakes in a lot of ways.
yeah. So that's kind of going more to like RE7, RE Village with the mold strain, right, and the connections. I would say obviously RE7 is a lot more isolated because it just happened at the Baker residence, and obviously in Village it was isolated in the Village region. So, but I mean, from what we got, I mean, we know that the BSAA it looks like it's compromised, and I assume they got samples for the mold strain, and this is something that they'll probably like spread around the world, like they've shown in both like RE6, RE5, and whatnot. So this is something that they could explore upon. Let me see.
It'd make a great segue for like the different Project W children, whatever they're called. I'm bad at the lore. It would make a great segue for them to come back, I think. Because, like, they don't want to make big names for themselves. They want the world to continue thinking they're dead. So what are they going to do? Small things, puppeteering. Like, oh, we're not going to destroy all of America. We're just going to mess with this in particular and this in particular.
Well, I think that's where the connections comes in. Like, that organization per se hasn't been explored upon. And we covered it that, Brandon Bailey, protege of James Marcus, like, he was one of the founders of the connections. So that needs to be explored. And let me see. And obviously the mold, they never explain how the Megamycete even made it that way. And you know what? Since we're talking about, we're in lore and Spencer, isn't it kind of funny too that, how Spencer got this idea from Mother Miranda of like this godhood or immortality, but in the end we see Mother Miranda who outlived Spencer, right? Because of the mold strain. So if you really thought about it, like he could have literally lived as long as Mother Miranda without even using the progenitor virus or even doing this eugenics program with Project W. So
I'll admit some of that is on me because I've only barely started RE8, so you guys saying like this is how Mother Miranda works, this is how the connections work. I'm sitting here like, what?
Oh my god,
what's going on? All I know is that she's Jesus. What's going on? So I'll admit that's on me. That's something that I don't know yet. I'm excited to go into it, and I hope they do explore that kind of aspects and build more on their lore. Because sure, fun little isolated moments are great, but it's always good to see connections and how it all works.
Yeah, I mean it's a ton of lore. It's taking me. I mean, when I'm making my YouTube videos, because I explore a lot of lore, especially like with one particular character, it literally takes me around like 17 to 21 hours to make one video, just because I'm reading through every single portion of the lore.
You got your cork board and all the strings and being like, this person did this and this person did this.
Actually, no, it translates more into my script when I I usually have like around like 18 to 21 pages, of script. And I have to organize it in a way, outline it, and where it would kind of make sense to people, like, especially for people who are barely getting to the, series, especially people like who barely started at RE4, then they went to RE5, and then they get this lore dump. Like, who's Spencer? What's this flower? Like, what was a T virus? I mean, if you started at 4, I mean, you don't really know much about the T virus, right? I mean, you heard about the Umbrella Corporation, but it was briefly mentioned that it got dissolved, right? And you go to RE5, you're like, okay, well, why is this so important? Why is these flowers so important? Who's this Wesker guy? Why is he so important? Why is this Spencer guy like looking for this Albert guy? It's a lot of lore that, if you didn't really take your time to actually go through every single file, it is very overwhelming.
Yeah, this is why I'm glad that for the most part they at least try to, because they got to like 5 entries at this point, so they knew by then, doing this with the loading screens, that they tried to make a summary of Resident Evil with the history of Resident Evil.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. They at least tried to do this with saying, hey, we have events, we have dates, we're going to try to summarize this as much as you can so you can know these background characters before getting to this point. What people tend to do now is recap and say, we're going to try to sum up the rest of the series and try to get you up to speed to this point, but this is how Capcom did it, at least with RE5. They tried to make it where there are these personal files in the game where it goes from 1 all the way up to RE4.
I mean, just the right choice. I'd argue there's so much to cover.
Yep.
There's so much content to cover over the course of about 13 years at that point. You've got 4 main entries, you've got many side entries, there's other stuff as well. There's just so much ground to cover. I think doing it the way they did was about the best they could manage of a kind of a pretty unenviable task, really.
Basic timelines and summaries are always good. Just to in case you're like me who gets confused because you're playing them one right after the other, just be like, all right, stop. This happened, then this happened, and because this happened, it's like, okay, got it, we're good.
Or they could have tried to do like a small mini trailer, how in RE Village, kind of give it like a small summarization of RE7, right? I mean, but to put like Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, 3, then Code Veronica, and I mean, I guess you could add 4, but then put that before RE5, that's a lot to digest.
Going on.
That's way too much. I mean, I'll be honest, they did a great job at it. They did the best that they can do.
It's a hard task,
right?
It's a big thing to do.
And the fact that, because going into it as a new player, you're left wondering. I mean, some people might say like, oh man, I need to go through the game and just explore every single thing. But if you're one of those people who are just like, hey, I just want to relax, play Resident Evil 5 and just get over with, but then you're wondering like, who are these characters? I mean, why is this lore so significant? You get what I mean? Like, why hasn't anybody done anything about these viruses or Ouroboros or this Wesker guy? I mean, has nobody tried to kill this guy yet? You get what I mean? Like, so, I mean, but as
Who
Ren
keeps
said
giving
that
Umbrella these business licenses?
exactly. Like, I mean, who approved of this? I mean, why is the Spencer guy still alive? Has nobody like tried to locate him?
I guess the best you could say is they tried to kill him but failed miserably. But even then, that requires some setup too.
Yeah.
But real quick, I think we should move to the next one because
Oh wait, hold on though. There's one topic that we didn't touch on that we started earlier. Yeah, so
Right.
Shadow, I want you to actually like continue your point you mentioned earlier, or let's recap it, because I might actually have a counter argument towards it.
Yeah,
Disagree with it.
Yeah, it's something that I certainly felt at the time. Like now, I'm not entirely sure, but I just remember at the time when I played this, playing 2009. Like I just didn't think that like the motives that Wesker was using and ultimately what he was actually trying to achieve just never felt particularly Wesker-like. It just felt a little bit too outlandish for someone who'd always kind of historically kind of schemed in the background and whatnot. I mean, eventually, I guess you can't just keep doing that. You have to kind of break cover eventually. But Wesker never seemed like the kind of guy who was like, let's just kill basically everyone on the planet.
Well, they are nothing but
See,
worms to me. This is the next step of evolution.
Yeah,
Fuck
like
'em.
we know he's incapable of like incredible coldness, but there's a line, surely, isn't there?
Here's the thing though, like
Wolverine.
I actually disagree with that notion. Why? Because Wesker always had a god complex, well at least after his original appearance, because he was kind of a goofball, right? After they rebooted his character in Code Veronica, though, he always had that complex of superiority and whatnot, right? If he wanted to continue Oswald's dream, though, he wanted to do it in his way, and he, in his eyes, he sees Oswald's way as inferior. Like, why we cherry pick, right? Why not just do a clean sweep and let the strong thrive with the new virus he's trying to do, right? Now, I think part of that does come from him as his first or final meeting with Oswald. And when he killed him, though, I think that's when Wesker finally went unhinged. And on top of that, Chris once again interfering with his plans. I think he just decided and said, fuck it, I'm going all out. I'm going all in. All hands on deck.
Yeah, the idea is that he's been sort of reasonably, for lack of a better word, sensible, and then Spencer tells Wesker, "Oh, by the way, you're a test tube baby." That's kind of awkward, and that probably, I mean, like if I was told that, I'd probably be sent over the edge as well. I'd be pretty upset about it. So, I mean, I don't know.
Milked you, and you had zero emotional trauma, and then you used the emotional trauma.
Yeah, I mean, is Wesker? Are we just meant to accept him as 2009 Sephiroth? I guess. I mean, sure.
Okay.
He also didn't take it very well.
Okay, here's the thing. There's actually some additional context to this. So, a lot of people get confused here at this point where it's like Wesker was hunting for all these viruses, and then when we get to the point of RE5, he just decides to sell them to the black market for the highest bidder just because. And I always thought that this was just due to Wesker being on top of the world at this point. He already dissolved Umbrella by this point. Spencer was wiped off the map pre 2009, so at that point he really didn't have any other competitors outside of rival factions, and behind the scenes we don't know how that was a success or failure. We just know that at that time Wesker had a good amount of power, had a good amount of connections, and I just would likely assume that once his competitors were out of the way, there was nothing else to do outside of just causing more schemes and making the world descend into more madness before ultimately settling on this Ouroboros plan. As Brandon said, Wesker killing Spencer, that probably gave him a bit more clarity as to, okay, it's time to fully enact on godhood and make other beings just like me. If they aren't superior, then they're going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Because they were saying with Ouroboros, it selects who is going to be a god and who isn't.
That's true, because remember when Excella got when she got infected by Wesker with the Ouroboros, I mean, you know what happens. I mean, if you're not selected, you just become this tentacle blob monster, right? I mean,
She was fully convinced that, like, yeah, I'm going to be among the elite. This is going to be dope. And then she wasn't.
yeah, exactly. But as you guys said, I mean, you guys summed it up pretty well. I mean, there was literally no more obstacles for Wesker. I mean, and we know the connections was already in prominence because remember, like, they started the mold strain research in early 2000s, and funny enough, it was Wesker's organization, like his other organization, the HCF, that helped them try to, you know, research into the mold strain as well. So Wesker had that on the side, but also he was also researching into the T Veronica virus from, you know, where he got the samples from Steve's body, right, from Code Veronica, and now he has the connections with Tricell and the Ouroboros. So now he had everything like set up for finally just to enact all his plans. Like nobody could really stop him except plot armor, right? To be honest.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean-
I guess the question is, if he didn't do this, like, because eventually you have to wrap up the Albert Wesker arc. Eventually, is how do you wrap it up? I suppose, and it has to be. I suppose inevitably it's going to be something completely over the top. It's just I remember at the time I was not completely sold. I was like, I don't know. Like I look at it now with more understanding and just being older. I'm like, yeah, I guess I get it. I also like not as fazed by this sort of thing as much. But I do remember at the time I was like a little bit. I was like, I don't know. It's a bit comic booky to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like they could have done something else instead of just like, you know, let's just wipe out 95% of all humanity because I'm infected and that makes me better than everyone.
Doesn't that also
I mean,
kind
in
of
certain
speak
ways,
to-
it kind of was.
Doesn't that
Okay.
also kind of speak to human nature, though? That like when you think you're on top of the world, you must find something else, something bigger to truly aspire to, and then in their downfall is thinking that they are on top of the world. Their pride gets them, their moxie gets them, and then someone takes them down, kind of a thing. Because he's like, you know, if we just take base Wesker, right? In many ways, he's already a god. He's already got everything he's ever wanted, but it's that greed, it's that pride that he wants more, and then that opens him up to be taken down.
While I
Right.
probably agree, this is Resident Evil. It is not thinking this deeply.
Well,
How's
definitely
Umbrella
not.
a successful business when they don't think this thing? Sorry, that's a whole other rant.
Yeah.
okay, well, I mean, yeah, you technically right, Shadow too, but also in hindsight, though, like pieces do fall together too. So but plus people interpret things differently. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's definitely a new way of looking at it because I always felt I'm very similar to Shadow like this. I always felt it was a bit too much of a narrative jump. Oh, not just narrative, but in terms of Wesker's character. Because if you look at 4, he actually still has a purpose and a role in 4 behind the scenes. And you can clearly tell when he's got Ada out there that he's collecting viral samples for the next step. And we can logically assume that the next step culminates in the end in the events that we see in 5, and that was a part of it. But I don't buy the argument, even though it is a fair justification, that it was just finding out his true purpose of being from Spencer that made him flip, considering he was his normal, calm, calculating self. Come 4, and then by 5, it's.
I
think
disagree
it
with
mostly
that, too.
stems from I think it stems from the fact that now he knows the truth of Spencer. Because that's the only reason why he kept him alive that long. Like he needed answers, clarity, stuff like that, right? And once he got in that though, he had no use for him at that point, which is why he decided to, fine, GG's, it's over, you're done.
Yeah, and
I can definitely see it. Like I said, I think it just comes down to like opinions and perspective.
Well-
It's the change has always just been a personal sore point for me, but hearing you guys discuss it now has definitely given me a new way to think on it because I hadn't looked at it with that much depth previously.
No,
But go on,
this-
continue. Sorry.
yeah, this is just, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is just a character flaw is what I wanted to add on to it. Like Wesker's, like many people when they bring up this argument with how his change was so drastic in RE5, some of the writing was also on the wall. Wesker has always been 100% overconfident, and the scene I think that homed it in the most was when he was on the bomber and he told Chris, I should have killed you years ago. This means that all the toying around, all the, shit where he's like, you're my best man, I'm going to let you handle this, he should have done it sooner. So the one true flaw was finally catching up to him with leaving his, like, #1 commander back in Stars days, like alive. So
his best man.
yeah, so I think that was just a lot of overconfidence talking, and also trying to finally envision that world where only gods exist and no one else because he deemed humans inferior. It's definitely, I wouldn't say that it's messy, but it can be hard to follow. But most of the pieces are there if you really just look at the signs and see what's going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know what's crazy? Like you said, the writing was on the wall already, like with Wesker. And if you guys go all the way back, even before, like, you know, in the days where he was partnered up with William Birkin, when they were still kind of like just regular staff members of Umbrella, that personality of his of trying to like be better, you know, was actually like touched upon with William and how they had the rivalry, right? Because they thought, you know, of themselves as superior over the other one. That's why they got partnered up in the first place. So now to see that seed move along decades to finally in 2009 with RE5, it makes sense in a way. But yeah, I get where like people are saying like that drastic jump of different like ideology from Code Veronica to RE5, you know, how he wants to be a god, right? I mean, I could see how somebody from that kind of personality then in a way having that evolution, becoming like a megalomaniac, you know? So it's like nothing satiates this guy. He just wants more and more and more. Eventually it becomes like a world thing where he just wants to like engulf everything with the Ouroboros. So I could see where this kind of started all the way back in the late 90s and all that until what we see in RE5.
I mean, learning your test tube, baby, and then being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna one up you. I'm not only gonna become a god, I'm gonna make the world gods. Fuck you, like that kind of.
And he's gonna reign over them.
I'm definitely content to meet like folks halfway, especially with the argument that was brought up a minute ago of him being a very overconfident individual, purely because Ren did make a very, very good point there. Like, this is Wesker we're talking about, and even after Jill pretty much threw him out of a window, if he'd have really wanted to, he could have climbed back up the side of that building, hopped through the window, and finished Chris off if he'd have wanted to without making an effort. But he just didn't. Obviously, we don't see it firsthand, but he obviously just didn't deem any of that worthy because it's just how he is. So I'm definitely willing to meet people with that. He had a complex and a superiority complex. You do see it all the way through, so that's true. Don't argue against that.
I'll entertain you just so I can see the hope leave your eyes, kind of a thing.
No, I will also be fair too. Like, Capcom could have done a little bit better job at conveying that though, because they didn't do enough on that. Because like, I guess like maybe another material in between, showing him going on the deep end and then meeting Oswald, or maybe have that afterwards. Sure, but like, and once you understand the context at hand though, like you will see why like Wesker's change in RE5 does add up from previous.
He also took Jill to fuck with Chris. So because from what I gather, and we're gonna go into the next question with this, but from what I gather, he always took her body and found out the antibodies were an interesting thing and that he could manipulate that and decide, hey, I'm gonna mind control her, as opposed to saying, if she was worthless, then he wouldn't have done that in the first place. But just to get back at his main rival, this is the main reason why he took the body and ran.
All right, from what I actually remember, is like he was experimenting the Ouroboros on her or something. He was doing experiments on her, right?
Yep.
Now, the reason why she didn't change is because of the T antibodies inside her, right? So that's why he got intrigued by Joe, which is why he kept her around, because of her antibodies. If she didn't have that, she would have been dead, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah.
But also, you also gonna make a good point as well. Like, he was using her as some form of leverage at some point when they meet again, because he knows like it's going to be inevitable. Chris and him are going to meet up again, and they're going to have to showdown. So by using her as a form of leverage to like block him from doing anything, too hasty, smart move in his part.
Yep.
We can't argue that he's definitely got that much foresight, because he's been tying threads together and preparing things over the course of a number of years. So he's definitely got the foresight to think that far ahead and think, I need contingencies here. So yeah, definitely.
Just enough
And
foresight to say, no one in their right mind will go into a volcano and punch boulders. That's absurd. I will be the victorious one there. He can't do anything.
I mean, none of them should be alive inside a volcano, though. Really. But,
Well, yeah. Like, I'm the only
4,000
one that lives
degrees.
there. Why are you still standing? What's going on?
Yeah.
But we also got to take it into account. I mean, if you're at the Wesker level godhood mode, right? I'm talking about like physical wise. I mean, there really isn't much in the world that could really kind of intrigue you or stimulate you, right? So the only thing I could, it's kind of in a sick way. I mean, he sees Chris as his rival, right? Even though he could probably just punch him and that's it. It'll end the story, right? But just him playing with his food in a way is kind of like, in a way, is probably like a sadistic way of just a like enjoyment. And then using Jill against Chris is just another form of that enjoyment that he liked. So
Well,
I could see.
Watching the suffering of a lesser being trying his best to
Exactly.
stop God.
But
I mean,
also, in fairness, real quick, he did also like take a lot of stuff from Wesker, right? Granted, Wesker, in theory, was not going all out, right? Because again, like we saw what happened in the game when he punched that steel, right? Granted, he was on overdose, right? But no,
Yeah.
one good solid hit would be enough to kill him, right? But Chris was the only one that was able to take all that and still come back and take him on,
Yeah.
you know? So, like, I think Wesker, in some weird twisted way, had some form of respect for him before he lost his shit.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Wesker, I mean, he's complimented Chris, even though they hated each other. He knew Chris was like a formidable guy. You know, he said that he was his best man, right? You know, from the Stars team. So, but like I said, I mean, if you get to that godhood point of Wesker and RE5, I mean, the only form of entertainment what you could do is like saturate the world and just like mess with the people you hated the most. And who's that person? Chris Redfield. And what better way to mess with him is by using Jill against him.
Speaking of Jill, this sort of moves into the next question. So, one heavy thing in the marketing was the fact that Jill was dead. I remember, I'm trying to remember the exact trailer, but I just remember everybody talking about it when they showed the gravestone of Jill's name on it. And everyone was citing, this is bullshit. There is no way that Jill is dead in this game, but it was a great marketing tactic because it's like, it made you more intrigued to this legacy character supposedly being dead. And then I remember the magazine that had Chris kneeling over the grave with the flowers, and that was the big shocker. So what did everyone think when they first saw that gravestone for the first time?
Okay,
I didn't believe it.
actually, I want to add one thing though. I'm not too familiar with the marketing because at that point I wouldn't know. But no, going by secondhand, yeah. So I wanted to know about secondhand. So I'll let you guys know, delve into that.
It was that and the woman in the tube. From what I remember, people started putting two and two together and trying to correlate this theory. Is Jill really alive or dead or being experimented on? Or I seen people say, is this Sherry Birkin, which was not true, but that was one of the theories.
I mean, like, this is... Who really believed it when they saw it?
I did not.
I didn't believe it. No.
I actually did. I was supposed to be the exception here. Then again, I was sat there and I saw the gravestone, and I remember this. I remember sitting there in the freaking computer lab in school, and just seeing the gravestone on like a freaking article that was covering it, and I'm like, damn it, surely not. I genuinely bought into it. Then, ironically, when obviously we saw her in the game with the mask on, I was just like, something in my brain clicked, and I thought, probably not dead. Just like I kind of saw through that because then there's like the obvious factor. But I remember as a kid, I did buy into it a bit.
Yeah, it's
okay.
it's marketing, isn't it, basically? I mean, funny enough, it's very similar to what happened with Resident Evil Village and Chris Redfield apparently being the bad guy. It's exactly the same thing, just in a different packaging.
Can I comment actually on that? Unfamiliar with this kind of marketing though, but I want to be fair here though. Given Resident Evil at the time, I can understand why people would believe it, right? Because you say the character is dead, right? Now you got people excited or anxious to know the concept behind it, right? And then you fool them with the woman inside the tube, right? I think that's actually a good way to fool people, right? It's fine to believe or not though, but if you say that today, yeah, people will say that that's full of shit, right? Because now they've done this bait and switch marketing multiple times, right? Yeah. But like you mentioned with Resident Evil Village, Chris being the bad guy, right? We all know that's bullshit, right? Because we know Chris. But no, same time though, like there's a reason why Chris has gone rogue, right? So we need to know the context behind that. So
What
that
would have
makes
happened to
the game
facilitate this kind of?
Yeah. And another game that Capcom did this with actually is slightly unrelated though was Democrat 4.
Yeah,
original
exactly.
market-
With Dante.
Yeah, Dante was made out to be the villain of that story, right? And then once you get the context of what happened, oof, yeah, that makes sense why he quote unquote going against humanity.
Mhm. I mean, you know what's funny? I remember that I read a couple of like, articles and receptions, like even Reddit, that he thought this ploy of pretending to have Jill die and having that tombstone was kind of, how do I put it, like a cheap way to try to get people interested in Resident Evil 5, because people were saying that like, hey, maybe Resident Evil 5 story couldn't just hold up by itself, which I thought it could without
Like
this
an
little plot
unnecessary
line.
gut punch kind of a
Yeah, it's kind of like, hey, oh my goodness, like, let's say you just finished playing Resident Evil 3, right? And next thing you know, Jill Valentine is dead now? Like, what happened? Right?
That's it. I disagree with that notion though, because like as long as it's handled properly, like, right, they can do bait and switch, right? Which to their credit, they have done that, right? No, if you have like something, okay, if you had like a character trait that was thrown out of the loop, right, and it, for the sake of the story or for the sake of marketing, and then you realize, wait, what's going on here? I think it can handle very well. Like it's one example that's done it poorly though, actually, which outside Resident Evil, we were Prototype 2. The main character of the first game became the villain for no reason. He became a cartoon villain in the second game. So that's an example of like doing bait and switch horribly wrong. Whereas Capcom does it, it leaves mystery, ominous around it. Like what happened to this character that lead up to this path, or why he died. This isn't that,
I mean, as long as they have a good, reason as to why, like, I mean, if they really did kill Jill Valentine, I mean, I hope they really did a good explanation as to why they killed off this character off screen before even, I mean, that's something that's really important to go to cover. But I mean, it's in the end, if you're gonna do this whole like bait and switch thing, as long as you do it properly, I think it's okay. Though, like you guys said, that Capcom seems pretty notorious of doing it over and over. So I don't know how many more times they could try to do this kind of plotline.
Yeah,
future games, but
I don't think, because if it happens in the Village DLC where someone's dead or Leon's dead or something like that, the first thing is people aren't going to buy it. I think they have done it way too many times where it's like the most hardcore RE fan will be like, you're fucking with me, because at this point it's just not going to work anymore. I think the only way it will work is if they confirm something like that, and then it's like, oh shit, well now I actually have to play the game to get this intrigue, because they're actually going the full way. They're not meeting you halfway with it, or they're not doing it to market and screw with you. So this I kind of saw through, because I think eventually, before I saw the gravestone, there was the woman already in the test tube at the end of the first trailer that they showed, when Chris was fighting all those hordes of enemies, and everyone was wondering, who the hell is that? Like, I have no idea. We just know that she's blonde, and that's it. So after that, I sort of put two and two together, like there's a woman in a tube, and then there's Jill being dead. And then once the full game came out, it was like, okay, Chris had his PDA of Jill being in the tube and being, in some sort of cryostasis, which I thought was not done the best, because I felt as though that illusion of her being alive shouldn't have been done so early in the story. But eventually it came to pass that the crow lady was Jill the entire time. So it was nice to see her again, just under a different way, which is being mind controlled.
Yeah.
As a quick side note, and this is once again a failing on my lore, but I imagine people in the audience will be happy to hear it as well. Remind me, why did she turn blonde, and why did her butt grow 3 sizes that day?
The hair is actually referenced in one of the notes. I believe the pigmentation.
I remember there was a note that
changed.
like all of her hair turned blonde. I'm sitting there like, why?
It's a very loose and probably not very scientific explanation that's given, but it tries to masquerade as one.
It's like stress makes her hair blonde.
The other one, I mean, like, I would probably agree, but have you seen Resident Evil Revelations?
It's part of the adaptation.
Yeah. Like, I can appreciate a beautiful woman. This is fine, but I'm sitting there like I had to pull up a picture of like her originally, and then with RE5 and be like, they added something. Hang on.
Okay, But to explain though, when she was in cryo sleep though, it's either the chemicals that was inside the thing or what was happening to her. The experiments though, it had an adverse effect on her, which turned her skin more paler. So she's literally white as a ghost, and her hair turned blonde. So it literally messed with her body.
Yeah.
I recognize it's
referenced.
I recognize it's probably more to, like you said, with the marketing, so it's not immediately, oh, there she is. So, like,
No.
there's some mystery to it.
No.
It adds a bit of stylistic choice, but that always struck me as just like, but why though?
Like, okay, so I think they did want to change her from a design standpoint, but I also will give them the benefit of the doubt for explaining why this is the way it is, because it is a part of her antibodies and some of the mutation that happened after the fact when Wesker was experimenting with her. I do agree, if this was like out of nowhere, I would have said, what the fuck is this? But they actually tried to do a fairly good job at explaining why this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, until I got to that note, it felt kind of out of nowhere, and then I'd be like, okay, this is fine. I'm willing to let this go. But in the moment, I'm sitting there like confused, wondering.
I mean,
why
in fairness though, it's not unrealistic. But it's not unrealistic though in the way of Resident Evil though. Like granted though, for her to have a completely different skin tone, different hair color, sure. But with the fact that when you get experimented on, something is gonna happen to you. It will have an adverse effect. I mean, look at
Right,
Wesker.
makes it more like
his eyes change colors.
yeah, it makes it seem more alien, more unknown, as opposed to like, oh, she looks totally fine. She's just like you saw her, and then she starts doing weird kickflips and stuff.
And
Yeah,
as far
so-
as these things, sorry, you go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just a quick aside, in terms of something as small as skin becoming paler and hair pigmentation changing, that is a very, very mild series of changes compared to some of the sort of things we have seen in Resident Evil. And I'm
People
thinking,
turn into bugs and whatnot. Yeah, no, I get that. I get that.
like, directly Resident Evil 6, like Simmons has been infected for all of 3 seconds and he turns into a fucking dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird
Okay, then we'll get
puppeteering
that one.
centaur dinosaur.
Yeah, there's
Yes, the
been a lot
dinosaur
of
boy.
there's been a lot of different
Dinosaur.
mutations that have even worse adverse effects as opposed to the hair and the skin.
Oh,
Correct.
it was just one of those things that, like, is this out of the realm of possibilities? No. But why? That's all side. That's
It's
the
just
side.
kind of there as a convenience.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
An aesthetic choice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Wesker mind. I mean, he kind of wanted to have a motif of, like, you know, what he had, like, kind of blonde hair. You know, he's a
Yeah.
superhuman. Now we got Jill wants to turn her blonde hair, make her superhuman as well.
Make her like me, just to screw with Chris
exactly.
that
My
much
version.
more.
I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, dude, that's a one way to fuck with somebody. Now I think about it, because
Yes.
like she has blonde hair. He had blonde hair. Every time you see her, you see me. That kind of deal. That's
was-
actually.
What
one way
was
to
the
fuck with
Batman
somebody.
cartoon where it was like I kidnapped Robin and I made him a miniature Joker and then he like
Oh,
beat
it
the
was
Joker?
Oh,
Batman.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called, but like that kind of freaky, like, look, I permanently ruined what is effectively your son.
It's not a cartoon. It's the movie. You're talking about
Return of the
Return of the Joker.
Return
yeah.
of the Joker.
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but I just remember that scene and being like, that is some insanely dark, twisted shit.
Yeah.
That, and I
But-
have to also voice a little bit of mild criticism, because when Jill's ass was mentioned a minute ago, the first thing my brain does is go to the Grinch and be like, Jill's ass grew 3 sizes
But
that day.
that's why I made that joke of like, it grew 3 sizes. Like Max, are you opposed? No, but don't call me out like that. It's rude. We're trying to be realistic here.
I mean,
I'm not
she does a lot of
opposed.
squats, man.
I'm not-
You see
I'm
the
not
shit she's done in the game?
opposed.
Like, goddamn, dude. Like, with that kicking power, though, yeah, I bet that ass is packing up some horsepower. You know? But-
Yes,
No,
please.
I'm trying to stay classy. Do I like this? Yes, but let's stay classy here.
Yeah, we'll try.
Trying.
Try it, Phil. All right, so any closing thoughts there? Because we should actually move on to.
Yeah.
It's number 10.
Sorry for that aside.
That ass is fat, apparently.
Yeah.
The legal term is
All right.
cake, anyways.
Yes, dumplings. All right. So Max P, you want to read off number 2?
I have to give you grief every time you say Max. You just call me Max
Yes.
Fed. It's all good.
No,
All right.
I'll call you Max P because it's funny.
Oh, well, there you go then. All right. The next question. I don't know what number 1. Did you play the Gold Edition DLC like Desperate Escape or Lost in Nightmares? If so, how did you feel about them both? For me,
Awesome
like I
Nightmares
said,
is amazing.
Nope,
Mhm.
we'll get to that in a second. For me, Like for me, I actually forgot to play them when I originally did, and I played them last night. I think it was nice to go back into the mansion, see a little bit more about see some like backstory stuff. The fight with Wesker, I felt a little cheated when I was like, okay, how do I beat this? This is insane. Literally be a coward for 3 minutes. Okay. It was nice to do some puzzle stuff. It was nice to do that. Lost in Nightmares, it did feel like a bit of a power trip where it's just like overwhelming numbers, figure it out. Some of it felt cheap, but I'd say overall it was a really good time.
You mean Desperate
Oh.
Escape?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I got the two confused.
Yeah, nah,
You know,
yeah. It was definitely two sides of the coin. Lost in Nightmares being kind of a bit more an homage to the old school, and Desperate Escape just like hits have just a giant load of dudes.
Just go freaking nuts, figure it out, survive.
That's the point. You know what? The one thing I actually really like about Desperate Escape, though, it has one unique mechanic that no other game mode has, including base game. You can actually discard a weapon that you don't want if you want to trade off for another one.
Yeah,
yeah, you can actually discard a weapon.
I didn't even try to do that. I didn't know that.
So yeah, that came in handy when I don't want this rinky-dink pistol anymore, or if I don't want my AI partner to have it. So, yeah. So yeah, I personally really do. I feel like this is like the pinnacle of honestly Resident Evil DLC as far as single player is concerned, or air quotes single player. Because like I said, you got two sides of the same coin. Though it tends to both audiences, and you get to play as Jill in both of them. So it's a win-win, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. I might have to counter with RE7's DLC because we got a lot of content.
RE7's DLC.
I mean, content
we're talking
wise, yes.
DLCs as a whole versus like in this moment. Is this nice? Yeah, it's fun. You get a bit more of some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like
we're talking
I enjoy...
globally. That's gonna be another discussion.
Yeah, I'm talking about individually. Like these two DLC packs, I enjoy more than what Resident Evil 7 had to offer with its DLCs. Now, granted though, there's some really nice ones in there. Like I do enjoy it, but I just enjoy the overall package of those two more so than what we got in 7.
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about quality, not quantity.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, Lost in Nightmares is like a little mini RE1, pretty much, right? I mean, it's pretty nice. I mean, good enough like time to play around with it. I mean, you get to play with your friends and all that. And I actually played my first playthrough with it was I played with my best friend, and I didn't realize that there was this was it the hammer axe guy, right? Like there was.
I don't know
what
those are called, but they're rough. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize. All I heard was like we hear something, like we're in the piano room, whatever, and you just heard something. You're like, what was that? Next thing you know, you got this like Goliath coming after you. You know, so it was a fun time, man.
I think there's also difficulty based as well because there's a lot of RNG factors to go into it. So your playthrough will not always be the same, but I think that's mostly difficulty based because I think a professional that you always come upstairs and try to kill me and my partner.
Yeah, they're both especially that one. Yeah, if you play it again on professional, there's a lot of extra stuff that gets thrown at you, and it's kind of a bit ugly sometimes.
How do you feel about like no map at the end on professional? That was,
that right there put me through the ringer because like I had to use an extra couple of brain cells to navigate and pinpoint where my target is at. So I feel like honestly they did a good job at subverting all former expectations. And what's speaking of I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that room also changes depending on the difficulty as well. On easy mode, for example, you only had to do that one time. On normal, 2 times, veteran 3, and so on. Like higher you go, the more you have to do.
It was bad.
Yeah, in professional they changed their pathing.
Completely, and that terrified me. Like, oh shit, not supposed to be up here, and I got X.
Yeah, you get caught off guard, and it's some really awkward paths they take as well. So.
But I love the challenge for it though, because it honestly forces me to change my strategy than what I'm normally used to. Because I always play on veteran every time I do also Nightmares, right? But the one time I actually did it, going in professional, it's a whole new experience. And honestly, I love it. That's what professional should have been. A new experience, not a bullet sponge, one hit, one kill type thing.
I was just thinking that anything to encourage like replayability as opposed to, and now we increase their hit points. It's like, that's not fun. We want something different. The enemies need to be smarter and that kind of a difference and challenge.
Yeah, they did a great job overall with these 2 DLCs overall.
You've just actually confirmed something for me because Lost in Nightmares especially is fresh in my mind because it's the very last thing I played last night before coming on to this. And just going to add in that Lost in Nightmares wasn't just a good DLC for me. It was my favorite part of the whole Resident Evil 5 package. I genuinely enjoyed it a great deal because you've got a lot more focus on, solving a few little puzzles, finding items, computer passwords. That there was a really strong appeal to me for that kind of gameplay element there. And the thing that you confirmed is that, yeah, indeed, they do add more things at high difficulties. Because as I explained earlier, muscular conditions, so hand reactions aren't as quick. So I keep things on normal just in case it's QTEs. And the bit where you're in the underground segment and you've got to drop the spikes on top of the big creatures, I noticed that after getting the third crank, the green one, I didn't have to do any more, but I believe there was a violet crank left over on an upper level, and I'm like, oh, I didn't have to use that. So I'm assuming you'll have to do that in a high difficulty, won't you?
Yeah, you had to do it 4 times in veterans, so you needed all of it.
So that has been confirmed to me, and I did like the whole package there. Just like Desperate Escape, mildly frustrating at times, but Lost in Nightmares itself was excellent. And I do just want to mention one little thing with Desperate Escape. I had a moment, a reactionary moment, the hold your ground segment on the roof, where it's like, okay, we're doing all right here. We're in position, and then just a minigun guy walks out of the elevator with a big shit-eating grin, and he's like, "What's up, motherfuckers?" And I'm just like, "No, go away."
Fun fact: I'm the
Reaper. Sorry, wait till a Reaper comes up there. Like that can actually happen.
Reaper.
Oh
god!
I've not.
Yeah,
had
I
that
love and hate that segment because it's so RNG to a T that you can actually have it where no enemies show up, or the game just bug out. That's probably just a bug, right? Or you can have like a bunch of heavy enemies
or chainsaws.
Yeah, chainsaws. Like
chainsaws and miniguns.
But it was so random that it literally boggles my mind on who made this.
It was pretty great though, like you said, when the minigun guy came out and said, "Fun fact, I'm the landlord here, and you're trespassing." It's like, oh, okay, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this young lady in the leotard outfit. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, Desperate Escape was pretty. Desperate Escape Professional is like one of the hardest sections I think of Resident Evil ever. It is pretty brutal.
I still haven't been in.
Super unforgiving. Well, I mean, like I've been in enough times, and we also had with my base handgun only run. We also went and did Desperate Escape with the person I was playing it with. Oh my goodness, that rooftop section was something else. Like running that with handguns and that's it was pretty insane. We did do it after about 80-90 minutes of trying. We eventually beat the rooftop. It was pretty insane. Good times though.
Can I just also give a little bit of credit to Doug the helicopter pilot.
I just wanted to give Jill the BBC.
Over the radio for like a few minutes, and then you see him for like 30 seconds. But in those 30 seconds, he displays more fun and character and energy than half of Resident Evil 6's cast do in about 6 hours. So he's great.
He has a gold tooth, I guess.
I mean, we don't know anything about Doug, so we can assume that he has like a penthouse on like the Hawaiis, and he just does this as like a job on the side. I mean, we can make anything we want, but Doug,
there's a lot to say about having a sense of humor, even in the worst situation possible. So
yeah, he's nice and upbeat. He's upbeat and positive. How can you hate that?
Like, if I'm not laughing, I will start crying. So let's go, everyone.
Yeah.
And he wanted Jill in this penthouse until he was unfortunately killed by an RPG. So
Rip Doug.
Okay.
Somehow in his will it says it belongs to Jill. Somehow.
Josh still thinks he could have saved him.
Just the comical gold tooth falling out after he was blown up. I literally just could not stop laughing for like 5 minutes.
It was absurd. It was absurd, especially Josh as well. After he's just like, Doug would have done it better. I'm like, it's like, come on, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Overall, though, great DLC. I really like both of them, to be honest, for differing reasons.
Yeah, they're both very strong entries for DLCs. There isn't that many, I suppose, into Resident Evil series, but they're both they appeal to different people. But there's a lot to get out of both of them for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like what was brought up earlier. There are two extremes. Like one is completely a puzzle and one's completely combat. So
And
you know, if you
Massacre.
hate one, you're probably gonna like the other.
Right. I know. Since we're done here, I guess, right? Shadow, you want to read number 11?
Yeah, we shall do. So, did you play Mercenaries, Mercenaries United, or any other versus modes that we could get as unlockables? And how do we feel about the post-game content of Resident Evil 5 as a whole?
The PvP sucks as usual, but Mercenaries is probably the best Mercenaries in the series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mercenaries Reunion, United, whatever the heck you want to call it, is a lot of fun.
The current iteration.
Yeah, it's great entertainment. Some of the characters, especially in the Reunion version, are like completely absurdly overpowered, but it's like how can you hate it? Barry Burton, especially, is just ridiculously good. Even Rebecca
Barry,
and her
Chris.
Flame Spray is exceptionally strong as well. But it's not about like that. It's about having a lot of fun and a lot of entertainment, especially with a friend, and just having. It's just like, what the hell, go balls in, and that's exactly what they did. Mercenaries was great.
Have you done No Mercy too? Am I at?
What one's this for? What's this, 6?
No
or-
Mercy is like just
no.
more enemies. It's also a
Yeah,
5
No
as well.
Mercy's in both 5 and 6 though, but in 5, for some godforsaken reason, you cannot play it online. It's only a solo thing.
I have no memory of this being in 5.
It's
Yeah,
in the PC version and the PS4, Xbox One version.
That'd be why I never played any of those.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So yeah, it's in those versions of the games, and actually, take it back. I don't think it's in the PC version, only PS4, Xbox.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been PC.
But
No Mercy.
but
I saw it. But
Resident
I
Evil
could be
6 had it on. I want to say PC, but it definitely had on PS4, Xbox
it was,
One,
it was on
and it's
console,
online.
at least, yeah.
Yeah, and you can play with friends. I mean, I thought the multiple modes that you could unlock was good. It really stepped. This is where the game stepped up Mercenaries, because now you had that mode for Mario 4, but you could do it with a partner. So it added like a whole new dimension to the co-op system and how you could play Mercenaries. I actually did enjoy the PvP for what it was. I like playing survivors, but I will admit, granted, the enemies could pick up power weapons, shotguns, and all this stuff. You had to go around and like find it, RPGs. But once you found the spawn points, it was pretty, cool to get a 1-up on your enemies online. And I played like all the survivors matches so far, so I do have the gold trophy. I also like Slayers as well, where it's like it's not really about killing the teammates, it's about killing the bigger enemies and scoring the most points from there. You can kill other teammates and all that stuff, but it's all about getting those big like point spreads for the kills. I think though that there should have been a little bit more to it. I did like that RE6 added a lot more to the versus modes and the competitive modes with the monsters, whereas this one, it was like very experimental, and I still appreciate them for trying. The Reunion was great also for adding in all the new characters like Rebecca, obviously Barry, and all the variations of Chris and Sheva you could use with either Fairy Tale, or I think there was the one where Chris looks like a shirtless Mad Max. I know that was part of the costume set as well, so that was pretty cool to go back and revisit the game in that way.
Mercenaries is just some good, like, mindless fun, and I really enjoyed the iteration that we got in 5, the Reunion version. I had a mess around with it the other day, because for me it's just an excuse, since I like that game's combat system so much, to just go around punching things as Chris for about 5 minutes, to the point where I got so much gratification that a few weeks back I just made a 2-minute montage of Chris punching people in all the different costumes. Because I'm a very sad individual. So I did enjoy it.
fun.
I can't speak for any of the versus stuff though, because I really don't play any of the multiplayer stuff as far as Resident Evil goes. When you guys were explaining earlier, those like people that only play it for the single player experience and don't touch anything multiplayer, that's me. But I enjoyed Mercenaries for what it was. So yeah, there's my take.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of in the same boat. I did very little with like Mercenaries and Reunion and Versus and everything, but it is, especially with Resident Evil games, anything in my mind that can encourage replayability, having more fun in that world, having more fun in that mechanics, and then the point system for buying all the different costumes and all the different models and things. I love that shit. Anything to encourage different play styles and different objectives, I think is awesome.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I guess we're done with this one.
Yep.
Oh, another big question, which I'm probably not gonna add a whole lot because my knowledge is still kind of limited to this one. But I'm ready. Want to read this one off?
Sure, no problem. Give me a second. Are you aware of information from Resident Evil 4.5, things like Chris reacting to sunlight as a gameplay mechanic, and even the reappearance of Barry Burton in the main game? How do you feel about the cut concepts within RE5? So, you want to go first?
Dehydration shit? Yeah, I'm glad that's gone. Honestly, that's honestly kind of stupid mechanic. Only because like I don't want to micromanage, me sweating to death on top of me healing and fighting enemies. Because God forbid when you had a heat stroke in the middle of a fight, then the enemy just killed you, right?
Yeah,
Sorry,
this is Resident Evil. This isn't Far Cry.
I love the idea
thing.
though of like. I love the idea though of you being swarmed by like zombies and stuff and being like, now hang on a second. You very slowly take out like your water bottle. You're just sipping it as you're pointing at them. Like, no, hang on. I'm thirsty. Okay, now let's continue.
There's a few interesting things in here. I do like the fact that they originally had Jill as a partner apparently. And you can play as her, but the big draw is obviously near the end of the game. Supposedly you're going to play with Barry, and him and Chris are going to do this whole team up, and that seemed like an experience where I don't see why something like that was cut. They also had a bigger fight with like multiple El Gigantes, but I also get why they cut this out of the game, because for this section in particular, it's like that would have killed the frame rate. Let's be honest, that would have
Another third section, and
it would be revisited in the following game, it should be noted.
That is
true.
That's
right. You're technically correct.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they didn't do this one, they did the next one.
No, correct me if I'm wrong though, but weren't we supposed to have 3 companions, which Shova, which you got character at one point, then it was a Jill and then Barry, right, as co-op partners, and so maybe if co-op was still going to be a thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of ideas. By the looks of it, they were gonna. It goes to show that they had a lot of options of what they wanted to do with 5 before they eventually settled on what they had. I think going with just one partner throughout, I think, is kind of better ultimately in the end, instead of having one that kind of chips and changes as you go.
Builds attachment to get consistency.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it is Sheva, and some people just refuse to on like a moral level just to do that. They just felt like they couldn't bring themselves to do it, even though she wasn't that bad.
I mean, sure though, but like from a game perspective though, nothing realistically would change aside from maybe like the melee combat stuff. But like the core gameplay is going to stay the same with each character, right? And I'm pretty sure people will be more inclined to have Jill on the side because we miss Jill. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have more playable characters.
Ren just posted this on the Discord, the picture of the Ouroboros train. Like, okay, I haven't fully read through this article. That art looks sick, and I love that. And then, which cool. Kind of came back in 6. And wasn't there, like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, the final fight of, was it RE2 remake? Where, like,
with Birkin eventually has something that's not a million miles away from this.
Right, like, I'm mostly just looking at the art and my mind's going to like Eldritch Horror and I'm like, fuck yeah, that looks awesome. But I could definitely see why a lot of this stuff, like, okay, I haven't fully read through it. Some of this stuff, especially like Heatstroke, like you said, it's like, for the best.
I'm very ill-informed about a lot of these features. In fact, I didn't really know about the vast majority of it, if any of it, until I saw this in the brief for the stream earlier. But just linking into things that were cut and changed, there is one thing I was made aware of. Am I the only one that heard, in terms of stuff that didn't make it into the game, that Sherry Birkin was going to make an appearance and she was cut?
I briefly saw while skimming. Otherwise, no idea.
I'm glad if that's true though. I'm glad she wasn't in the game now, because for starters though, like RE5 is like pretty much love letter to RE1 and technically 3, right? So she would be so out of place, So I'll time her not being it.
I'm just wondering, because I'm I'm sure I heard like a few years back, I can't recall exactly where, that she would have played a role in the game originally, if not more linked into Jill's side of things, but she was like cut out in like the early to mid stage of development. So that's just
there
what
were
I heard.
rumors that she was supposed to be, the blonde woman in the marketing material, right?
Yes, it was
speculation.
Yeah.
So that probably like overlapped or crossover at some point, right? But there's nothing definitive locking that down, as far as we could tell.
When you say I'm just gonna say quickly, when you say the blonde woman in the promotional material, do you mean the woman that gets dragged off that Chris and Sheva have to save early on?
No.
Okay. Okay. Carry on.
Yeah, he's mentioning the woman in the test tube, which it turned out later to be Jill. So there is a lot of interesting stuff here. I'm gonna leave the article. It's from Rely on Horror. That's going to be in the description below for this podcast. But essentially, they were trying things like more zombie type creatures. They were also going to have the idea where Chris was by himself at one point in the game before co-op actually happened, so that was cool. I think they sort of tried that in the E3 trailer, the initial one that they first showed, also with the dehydration mechanic. There was going to be tyrants in the game, or tyrant boss battle, which would have been another awesome thing. And then there's like some weird omissions that I'm kind of glad that were on the cutting room floor. Like, apparently Jill stabbed Wesker's eye out with a knife, and he was going to have a glass eye sometime in the game, which would have been stupid because we already know that Wesker has regenerating powers, so why wouldn't that grow back? That's kind of weird.
Wesker is JJ confirmed?
He's JJ confirmed.
He'd want to hold on to the glass eye until he met Jill again, and then let it regenerate to pop it out, just to fuck with her. Like, look what I could do. Just these eyeballs are falling out of his head.
I was saying, Wesker, eye patch, beret, like, I could dig it.
They also had like two interesting things, like real quick. We mentioned that the merchant was going to be back in this version, and they also said that you had the capability of stealing the merchant's weapons. I'm not sure what the consequences would be. Actually, I see it right here. They said if you try to steal the weapons, they would close the shops for the future merchants, and you basically would get like sort of flagged down from that. And I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I would try to peel off a gun, and then all of a sudden I can't buy any more guns. That'd be crazy.
Okay, as fun as it sounds though, that right there is stupid mechanic, because what if you did it by accident, or whatever the case may be, right? You cuck yourself inadvertently, right? It should be just like for that merchant alone,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure if you steal from the merchant, your punishment is you're going to hell, because that's a cardinal sin.
Yeah,
like, how fucking dare you?
Yeah, I mean, it's bad enough like what you're doing, Norman, but you feel compelled to steal from the one person willing to help you in this.
The one that is pure of heart.
Like your soul,
straight to the boiler room.
Your soul is damned and cast to the fire, and Sharon will be waiting for you. Like, you deserve it.
We'll
give you a wave as you go even deeper.
There's also a redesign of Excella, so I'm gonna post this in the chat. She looks like she's a brunette, and she has like a different dress, so it's a little bit more hotter.
I prefer the concept. I prefer her original outfit than what we got in the final game. Honestly, it looks. Now I know she's supposed to be like the stereotypical sexy, type, woman, right? But this looks far more practical than wearing that dress she was wearing.
Yep.
I know it sounds weird, Resident Evil practicality, but I feel like that's more a safer bet to wear than.
It looked like it was gonna go away at a slight breeze. Like, I remember watching it, just like, please, a jacket, something.
Yeah, like a nip slip can happen at any given point. That kind of deal, So
maybe that was the point.
I feel like
aesthetically, I just like this.
That I've done nothing. I want to leave.
Aesthetically though, I prefer the original concept. They should honestly just stuck with it.
A nip slip.
I mean, maybe it's like it looks too similar to some of Ada's outfits. That's me spitballing. No,
not really. Actually, the whole style of it, is far off base from what Ada normally wears.
I guess, yeah.
I stand by exactly what I just said in the Discord. I'd hit that. I'm standing by it.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, we're trying to be classy here. We're doing our best.
I'm the one dragging it down. I apologize, listeners. It's fine. Blame
I get
Silver.
it first.
I did nothing. I'll just convey the information.
Uh-huh.
One
This
thing
is
I
the hard
do want
hitting
to
news you come here for.
yeah. One thing I do want to reiterate as well from earlier, I want to double down on a point that was made. I am very glad that something like the dehydration mechanic was dropped, because that game was very QTE heavy. Can you imagine if you'd have been on the boat segment with Josh, and then all of a sudden you just get another pipe, and then you're dying of dehydration and have to drink out your canteen while there's a QTE coming? That would have
Yeah, dude, you have to point at everyone, do the scene from The Incredibles, and say like, "I'm thirsty. All of you hold your horses."
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
They also say one more thing in here. Apparently, Silver has embodied the role of Wesker because there was going to be a Wesker Excella sex scene, and that was cut down.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm glad that happened. I'm good.
There is
Yeah,
it,
that's
Bob.
fine. Yeah.
Yo, man, he might give her the global power of backhanding her in the bedroom.
Okay,
Yeah.
knowing Wesker though, if she'd be like, "Yes, I'm into this. This is gonna be awesome. I'll be your queen." and then
Yes,
she would,
daddy.
She would explode in that moment into Ouroboros. So he'd be like, "Oh well." and just
This
walk away.
podcast-
Oh, okay, that's something I didn't see.
Poor
Holy
choice of
shit.
words. Oh my.
He's offering her the complete global saturation.
This podcast is sponsored by Brazzers.
Yes.
But like just knowing Wesker, be like, "All right, sure, you want some of this? Here you go." Then she would just die immediately.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I just came back. What's going on here?
Nah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. You're good.
No,
You're good.
it's all. It's
I
definitely
would
not
suggest
fanfic.
you turn off.
Moving on.
Go on,
Okay.
go away for about another 3 minutes, and you should be okay.
I know it's fanfic out there. I don't want it to be, but I know it is.
I started this. I apologize. No, I don't. I'm lying.
Let's move on to the final question then. So,
Okay.
what is your personal score and ranking for Resident Evil 5? So basically, how would you rank the game for your own personal score from 1 to 10, and how would you rank it for against the rest of the series? So where would you put it on your list?
I sure won't go first though, because I probably have quote unquote controversial opinion on this though. But no, for personal enjoyment though, I always rate Resident Evil 5 as honestly it also goes with age at 10, because I enjoy the game so much, I play it so much. It's like the game that I just cannot stop playing whenever I get my hands on it, right? But also it's also one of my top 5 favorite RE games of all time. Right next to the original 3, Remake 2, all that jazz. Like yeah, it's a very, very personal favorite of mine. I hold it dearly because it just honestly a fantastic game. It's well crafted though. I wish it'd get more recognition.
I would honestly say 9 out of 10. I would put it also in top 5. Very, very good action horror experience, and definitely some of the additions they were adding with how to integrate certain systems and not giving the hydration mechanic in there. I think it ended out for the better. I think they definitely tried their best with partner systems and mercs and co-op, and overall it's just a solid follow-up from RE4. If I were to think any other direction as to how they would do a sequel, I think this one hit the nail on the head for expanding the conventions that the last game made.
I don't know. I'd probably say 8.5 personally. I think it's a very, very strong title. There's a lot to enjoy. It's a better experience with a friend than doing it yourself. It's totally fine by yourself. It's totally serviceable. But you want to try and do it with someone else, preferably. I do think that I don't know. There are things you can pick holes at a little bit here and there, and some sections of the game are far stronger than some other sections, as we've mentioned about. So it would be unfair to ignore stuff like the turret stuff and just we have to. That just doesn't really work and whatever else. But it's fairly minor. The plot's pretty decent if it's a little bit obvious what's going on at times. And again, some of it you're gonna you might actually enjoy Irving and think he's kind of quirky. You might just think he's an annoying runt and just want to get past that part of the game as soon as possible. Your mileage is going to vary there, but I think 8.5 is pretty solid for this game.
This is probably where I'm gonna end up being a touch on the slightly more controversial side. I'll start by giving some preface of what I gave it when I made my tier list for all the games. I gave I gave it a C. It's definitely been upgraded to a C plus now in terms of like what it offers, and from what would have been a 7, I'd now say is a solid 7.5. I really solidly enjoy what it offers. I'm going to be honest, I do have a more predisposed bias to the more traditional horror entries. And there are some moments where 5 is really, really solid. And then some moments where I just feel like it could do to take a foot off the gas pedal a bit and have a slightly quiet moment here and there, like 4 did. 4 was very heavily action, but it always had those quiet moments in between. I know 5's not like designed fundamentally to be that way, but it's a matter of personal preference. I'd say solid 7.5. It's still a really good entry, just could do to be a touch more chill at times, but that's just me. I'm happy with it. I'm happy. Okay.
That's actually a great take. I agree with you completely, like 100%. I mean, I would rank this initially like around a 7 out of 10. Just a solid game, you know, good Resident Evil title. The thing that would make this like almost like 8.5 is the fact that there's just so much lore behind this title that I just delved into it. It's amazing. I absolutely loved it. But as you said, I mean, it's just pure adrenaline mode from the start, and sometimes less is more, right? You just want to be like, hey, you know what? I just want to immerse myself, kind of like, you know, digest everything that's going on, you know, especially the amount of lore that's being thrown at you.
Absolutely,
so, yeah. And the fact that I leaned, because I started with the original Resident Evil 2, so I already had the predisposition of wanting more of the kind of slow survival horror kind of like, you know, style. So playing this game, I mean, it wasn't completely my taste, but overall, I mean, it's a absolutely solid Resident Evil game, and it's really, really fun if you play with a friend. It's really, really fun, but horror-wise, completely out of it. Like, I don't find it that scary. But like I said, it's fun. You're gonna have a great time. Solid lore behind it. Good game overall.
You know something though? Like you guys mentioned that you had a pretty like bias towards horror and whatnot. Technically speaking, so did I, because I actually started Resident Evil 3 though, but I guess I grew up in a way where I'm not picky when it comes to, let's say, RE. No, as long as the game is good, like it could be I wouldn't say any style though, as long as it's respectable to what makes Resident Evil, for the most part, Resident Evil, I guess, whatever. No, as long as it's respectable, like I could play, action Resident Evil or horror Resident Evil.
So for me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You first. Go ahead.
So for me, I'm gonna be honest. I've always been really, really bad at like rank these games and how you like them, especially because I play them all one right after the other. So it's hard for me to pick out one game and compare them. To me, I always look at it as like a group, as one series kind of a thing. So I'm gonna do the cop out and give it a Shiva out of 10. Because I was endlessly warned about Shiva. I was told Shiva's awful. I was told she's, she will be your biggest threat. But honestly, she was a lot of fun. She worked together well. The combat was smooth. The working was great. But by virtue of there being a buddy, by virtue of it being cooperative, a lot of the horror was lost because you were not alone anymore. But I think that added to it a lot. There was still plenty of scary moments. Sure, I was sometimes annoyed by like quick time events and things, but yeah, from a lore perspective, from just like a good solid combat, I still think this is a wonderful game. I'm definitely glad all the people in chat who are like, you're gonna hate it when you get to RE5. I'm glad they were wrong, because I really, really enjoyed it.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Like, I have to kind of change my score. I'm gonna move this from a solid 8 to a 10 out of 10 just because of that boulder portion of the game.
The boulder was hype. It was extremely hype. I loved it.
I totally forgot. I'm sorry, Chris.
Boulder out of 10.
About 3 hours.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 boulders.
And now
10 boulders out of 10 boulders. There you go.
There you go.
That's a nice boulder. Oh God.
If
No,
I were
I'll
to
stick
say
with- I'll
favorite
stick with
moments,
Shiva out of 10.
yeah,
If you like Shiva, you'll like the game.
just as an honorable mention, if I were to say favorite moments, is that punching the rock. I don't think it gets any better than that because it's so unbelievable. But your mind is like, he's continuing to punch it. He actually moved it. What the fuck? That's the first thing that I said. So my favorite moment in the game is definitely that.
It gets so out of hand. Well, I remember, even though you know it's coming, I'm sat there finishing the main game last night before I moved on to the DLC. Boulder Time's coming. Wesker's right behind us, and the adrenaline's kicking in. And I'm like, I'm not even like saying Chris. I'm on like given name basis here. I'm like, Christopher, punch the fucking thing, punch it. That's right, yeet the bastard. Go on. I got really excited.
Yeah,
Too
there's a lot of me. There's a lot of me going like, "Let's fucking go!" It was awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you guys? And did any of you guys actually mess up on that boulder portion?
Yes,
I have.
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Okay, I'm not the only one then.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I will not pretend for a second to be perfect at games. I screwed up all the way there. Well, also, okay, side note, I went into that final boss fight with very little ammo, so I got really acquainted with those hooks and those knives.
Oh,
It was bad.
Oh,
Oh
no.
dear.
All right. Anyone else? There, everyone. I kind of zoned out for a second.
No, I think that's
fine.
it.
Everyone else is reasonable, gave numbers, and I used a character instead. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
All right. Good. All right. So, in that case, then I guess we can start doing outros. Like shout out. We can see you.
Yeah, you enjoyed everyone. You can find me over on YouTube, also over on Twitch at black_shadow_993 because someone still beat me to it. I still have not located them and broke their legs. I will get them one day.
All right. Hey Dub, outro yourself.
All right. Well, I'm primarily on YouTube. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I do mostly Resident Evil lore content. Kind of lately long style, 20-minute, 25-minute style videos. If you guys really want really detailed, lore analysis, and come check me out. It's Hey Deva, HEY space DEVUH on YouTube.
All right. Max P. Outro yourself.
I'm still gonna hunt you down for continually saying that. As at the beginning, my name is Max, also known as Lordectro. I focus on being a variety streamer on twitch.tv/Lordectro. We are almost done with the Resident Evil franchise series, finishing off with Village, and almost done with Elden Ring. So looking to do some new things. We're thinking of the Metroid as the next franchise series, but yeah, you can catch me there.
All right. Silver Gaming Network.
Alrighty, yeah. You can find me on YouTube at Silver Gaming Network or Twitter at SilverGaming01. We stream every Wednesday and Saturday night, and currently we are just going through a ton of the Resident Evil games again, like we often do. So join us there, have some fun, have fun with our community. Thank you.
All right. Renegade. Outro yourself.
Okay, you can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. You can find me on Twitch at Renegade_Operative. Currently, I am just going to be working on the RE5 podcast, and I'm going to try to get the Jameson Price interview up. I know a lot of people have been asking for it, but yes, I am working on it. I've been busy. I've been a busy boy. And then after this, I'm gonna go back to Eternal Darkness and Let's Play stuff, and maybe more reviews on the channel. So I'm gonna be busy with that too.
All right. And last but not least, you can find me on Twitter at Immortal Brundle, Twitch at Sir Brundle. YouTube's a work in progress. Everything else is not your goddamn business. Once again, thank you all who sat here or did some stuff around the house. No, listen to us. Whatever time it is for you, whether it be day, evening, night, whatever. Same thing. Yeah, thanks for listening. Have a blessed time of day for you, and stay safe out there.
All right, now Mr. Pushy.
More about.
Yeah, Mr. Pushy's gonna put his dick in a volcano, and there you go.
Thanks for listening to us, go on about endless things in the worst way ever, if I could talk correctly.
Farewell, you fine people. Farewell.